Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined the Doctor as he travels the Vortex and landed at episode number 36. And we're making a house call right into your living room. Or wherever your computer is.
Or your car.
Or your car.
Or your iPod.
Or your iPod. Well, in theory.
It was good at first, and then you kind of fell off there at the end.
I tried to continue it. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
And I'm Glenn.
Welcome to Traveling the Vortex. How was your guys' week? Glenn, you had a big vacation
I
week.
did. It was very nice. Watched movies all week. Did nothing else.
Were you on holiday?
I was on holiday. In fact, I almost didn't show up here this week.
I'm just going to use that term from now on. Where are you going? I'm going on holiday.
I was on holiday for a week.
Did you go to Spain?
I did not. I did not go to Spain. I didn't go to any other of the number of locations that Doctor Who stars and actors have gone to.
He had a staycation.
Yeah,
Got caught up on a lot of movies.
I did. Well, that was just it. Usually, Holly and I sit down and we make a list. We talked about this a little bit last week, but we make a list of things, projects we will get done around the house when either one of us are off. And this time we didn't have anything. We had like one thing. And so this was the first time I didn't really have the project list. So I, at the beginning of the week, said, hey, this is going to be vacation. This is going to be sit down and watch movies. Since I can't go anywhere, this was a staycation. So I sat down and watched a ton of movies. Got a lot of movies out of the way. Caught a bunch of movies that I've been sitting on that Sean loaned me for a long time.
And you didn't like any of them?
No, I liked. What did you give me? Slither? No, I didn't like so much. It wasn't a bad movie, but wasn't as great. It wasn't great.
Which Keith and I maintain you're crazy. You did love the Amateurs.
I loved it.
You liked Hellboy?
I did. I liked Hellboy. You didn't loan that to me, but I did. I watched Hellboy. Oh gosh, I watched Tangled, Megamind. That was another one I liked.
Megamind
that you loaned me. Amateurs, Hellboy, Green Hornet. What else did I watch? I went and finally saw Captain America. Yeah, just a bunch of
You
stuff.
posted a bunch of reviews on the site, too.
Well, I've got 2 up. I intended to put more than I did, but...
And if you're following along on the website, yes, we also review movies.
Occasionally.
It's a reason to give us content.
Well, any news this week? I don't think there was.
Doctor Who is still on.
Yeah.
That's right.
Another week.
Torchwood is almost
Wrapping up, yeah. They had
they finished shooting.
Yeah, well, I mean, the show's almost wrapping up.
The season is
one
almost
episode
over,
left.
yeah.
No,
I suppose the one piece of quote-unquote news that came out this week, and I had actually intended to try and build this up as an article for the website, and
Not enough there.
really just not enough there, so I guess we can briefly mention it. Matt Smith, it seems like he's ready. He is so ready for the 50th anniversary, because every interview I've read with him recently, he's been talking about it. The first,
I'm glad he's excited.
The first hint was, hey, we're going to do the 50th anniversary, and it's going to be cool. It's going to be off the hook. It's going to be this. And then the second one was, oh, I totally think we need to get some multi-doctors back, and just how cool would it be to see Tom Baker in the scarf again, and blah, 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 blah. And now, this week, it's all... I would like to really see if they could do it in 3D. I just think that would be amazing. And he went on and on and on about how much I don't think they could do it. It'd be kind of prohibitively expensive for Doctor Who, but wouldn't that be cool looking? So, chime in. What do you guys think? Is there any part of you that would be curious to see a 3D Doctor Who special?
No, not whatsoever. Although I'm not a big fan of 3D film.
Neither am I. And
I think they're gimmicky and unnecessary. And until the day that I can see 3D without glasses, I don't care to have 3D on anything.
If they were to do a 3D movie, or a 3D special, they need to do it right and not make it gimmicky. Shoot it with the 3D cameras like they do the movies. And
the real movies.
Dips. Yeah, the real
not
movies.
those, hey, let's go back into post and convert this into 3D.
Shoot it like
I don't know,
they shot
Clash
Avatar.
of the Titans.
Yeah. Like Avatar with those cameras giving... And it would have to be very epic. Of course, if it was the 50th anniversary, it would be epic. And hopefully galaxy spanning, so we'd have that depth of a galaxy on the screen. That would be the only way I would want a 3D. Otherwise, I would not want it at all.
Yeah, I like my Doctor Who the way it is now, and they can keep it that way.
I mean, we did get 3D in
Dimensions
of Time. Because nothing says 3D special like the disembodied head of William Hartnell.
Well, not to mention the exciting walking through East in London. There's so much potential for 3D there.
Yes. Well, I forgot to mention this last week, but Sean and I now have a TARDIS in our living room.
No, that's right. Thanks to Sarah.
Found a cardboard cutout TARDIS in a nearby town.
Applause for Sarah. Yay!
Yay!
Who's actually in the studio today in the background. And Mel is too.
And they're ignoring us.
Say hi, Sarah and Mel.
Hi!
They're playing Wii Motion. Sarah's waving as though you can hear the wave.
Sarah, that's a Sean thing. You don't wave at a microphone. Even I know that now. Didn't early.
Got your...
but now we have a TARDIS in the living room.
And it's not in 3D, it's in 2D, and it's just
2D.
fine. It looks great. So
That's right.
You don't need 3D for Doctor Who.
I have to admit, when we put the lamp up next to it, I was really tempted to get the X-Acto knife out and cut out the little windows in the lamp on top, and then position the lamp behind it.
So they shine
So
and
that they
then
would
turn it on and off.
Well, if you did that, though, you'd have to X-Acto knife them out and then put like a translucent piece of paper because you didn't want the light to come straight through.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's true.
And it would take a coordinated effort, because I'd have to be on the lamp, and Keith would have to be on the cookie jar, so that we could coordinate noise and audio and video at the same time.
Yeah. Which we would be able to do, and we probably wouldn't... Nobody would put it past us to do that.
No.
If we decide to go that far with it, we'll
take
record
video.
it and post it on the site for your. This is what we do in our spare time. Oh, isn't that cool? Look at that! It looks like it just, it doesn't.
For your visual enjoyment.
Oh, and we can take a shot of it before move the cardboard cutout away, and then put it there, and dissolve between, so it actually materializes. Is that too much?
I don't know. Would it be?
That would be awesome.
This is the depth of our fandom. We spend one moment talking about 3D and how cool that would look or not, and then going back to let's have a cardboard cutout materialize in our living room.
Well, let me go back to something you said then, because you've got Keith on one side and you with the cookie. Keith on the other side with the cookie jar to make the noise. If you're going to go through the process of making the post-production of the thing,
well, yeah,
let's just insert the audio.
I'll add the audio in after. I have a clip of that on my computer. So.
Not as cool. Not as much. We deal with practical effects here.
You want what is it?
I don't want to insert it optically.
No, yeah, optical. No, optical is right.
Damn it.
Special effects would be the other way.
All right, moving on to feedback.
Which we have a lot of.
We have
this
a
week.
lot of feedback, so buckle in, kids.
How many feedbacks do we have?
10.
10. That was funnier the first time.
You didn't follow through this time.
Yeah,
Well, you took over. It was like, okay, I'm done.
it was off mic.
Yeah, it's always funnier.
That would have been a Sesame Street reference, but it failed miserably.
Yeah.
So we're just going to move on.
That was a pre-show joke that didn't carry through to the podcast.
Our first bit of feedback sent to us early in the week was Alex Giles, a.k.a. Moldwitch.
Hey, Alex.
Notice I didn't say Moldy Witch.
You did not.
It's been a while since we've heard from you, Alex. Good to hear from you.
Well, not since he joined the
Well,
pseudo
and
staff.
other than a entry on the website.
Yes, two.
Well, that's entries on the website.
Entries. There you go.
He says, "Hey guys, listening to the latest show, it's still good as ever, and the discussion of favorite Doctor, and I thought I would chip in. My Doctor was Sylvester McCoy, and he was my favorite for nearly 20 years until I rewatched all Doctor Who episodes in order for the second time early last year for me. Wow, what an undertaking.
Yeah, no lie. I can't. We
That would
haven't even
take
done
all
that,
year.
have we?
No,
I've never done it.
No, I've never seen all of them.
Wow.
There's lots I've seen several times, but I've
But I
never
mean, to sit
seen
down and do it in order, that's got to be.
Well, because now,
Alex, I'm curious,
The
did
question: Did he watch the recons for
That's
the stuff
what I
that's
was just
missing?
wondering.
Because that's a real endeavor. I think that'd be.
Although,
That'd be
if
We're up
it's
to what,
some of the-
778 episodes now?
Is it that?
I think Let's Kill Hitler was
Is that
777.
episodes or is that stories?
I think that's stories.
777.
No,
stories?
777, or now 778 episodes.
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 Because there's only 180
some odd, yeah.
Some odd stories. Wow.
Impressive.
Alex, you've just blown our minds with that one. Sorry, continue.
Peter Davidson, as the Fifth Doctor, took my breath away. I have seen all his episodes before, but never felt as I did until last year. I don't know if this is due to age or having now seen all episodes that I can make a better decision, or perhaps my tastes have just changed. Not only this, but after Matt Smith in A Good Man Goes to War sneaked up, and now I have a three-way tie at the top with 5, 7, and 11. I will always have 7 in my heart as my doctor. And I suppose it begs the question, is changing your doctor like changing your sports team, as in it doesn't and shouldn't happen? Perhaps that's a new article for the blog waiting to happen. Anyways, keep up the good work. Still loving the show and blog. Regards, Alex Moldwich Giles.
Very good.
Thank you as always, Alex.
What do you guys think? Can you change your doctor?
I think it's like he said. 7's always in his heart. As
7
his
will
doctor.
be his first doctor.
And so, because I'm kind of the same way. I mean, Tom Baker is my doctor. I absolutely love Tom Baker. I can watch him over and over and over and over again. But Matt Smith
blew you away.
Well, Matt Smith and David Tennant both have blown me away as doctors, and are very close seconds. And sometimes even I go back and forth and like Tennant more than even Baker at times. But it's just they're two different types of doctors, or two different styles.
I think there's something to like about every single incarnation of the doctor.
I think so.
I think you can also...
But I'm like Alex. I mean, four will always be my doctor, and in my heart is always my doctor.
I think you can like a doctor possibly more than your doctor. I think as we've designated the term, my doctor,
is who you get introduced to.
It's the one maybe you have the most fondness for, or the one you're introduced to first,
which typically is one and the same.
Yeah, which usually is.
Some people, their first doctor isn't who they had the most fondness for.
I mean, I'll give you an example of that. Having just finished the Big Finish 8th Doctor Adventures, all 4 seasons, I love Paul McGann more than ever before.
You loved Paul McGann from the day he said hello
I
on
did.
The movie.
I'll freely admit that. I loved Paul McGann's Doctor, and I have only become more enamored with him through the Big Finish stuff. It's just more and more and more and more impressive. Mel agrees.
I'll second that.
And she would also say that she'd be a person that would also say that Tom Baker has always been her doctor. But I think in many ways, Paul McGann is almost, for me, recently, as of right now, possibly more liked. That didn't make any sense, but that's what I'm going to stick with.
No. I know what you're saying. There.
Glenn's looking at me like I've got lobsters coming out of my ears.
I know what you're saying there.
Well, and for Sarah, she was introduced with Eccleston. That's when she really paid attention to Doctor Who. She had said she had seen some older doctors when she was younger, but didn't remember them. But David Tennant is her doctor, because that's who really...
So that's an instance of it not being one and the same, that the one she was introduced to is not her doctor. But yeah, I think you can change. Now, your sports team, no. You can't change that at all.
This is a Doctor Who podcast.
That's because your sports team, your sports teams don't.
Unless it's cricket.
Your sports team don't regenerate every so many years and become a whole different personality.
Oh yeah, they do.
Well,
you're not a Chiefs fan. I guarantee you, they're different every.
Well, but they're the Chiefs. But I just have to say, I don't know how the 7th Doctor could be anybody's doctor. Sorry, Mulnich, that was kind of poking fun at you at the expense of Sean. So,
I'm not even. No, I'm just not even going to go there. Leave my Sylvester. In fact, I have a great reference. I have 2 great Sylvester McCoy references. One of which probably should have been in news, but I'll save it.
All right.
Next on the feedback list, we've got Alex Smith, or Freaky Alex, as he likes to be called. Or maybe doesn't. I don't know.
He goes by, that's his Hotmail.
Yeah, that's his email.
Says, hey guys, me again. With my 3rd piece of feedback in 3 consecutive weeks, you're probably getting tired of my yammering, so I'll keep this one short and sweet.
Yeah, right. I've read this one, it's not short.
And for the record, we love every bit of feedback we get on the show.
Yes,
long
we do.
or short.
Long or short. Number 1. I'm not quite sure what happened to my last piece of feedback. I don't remember typing traveling TEHVO. I'm not sure how it got to you. However, it was reassuring to hear from Sean that I could type Santa Claus and it would get to him, although I doubt that Father Christmas has a Hotmail account.
And he did title his email to us, Dear Santa Claus.
I should have read that. I didn't. It's just because we're that cool, Alex. And that goes out for the rest of you listening out there that think maybe you'd like to submit a piece of feedback. Throw a note in a bottle. It'll get to us.
It'll travel the vortex and land on this table.
We have psychic paper. It'll show up.
A little cube. Throw it out the door.
There you go. I've got mail. Number 2, your rebuttal of my opinions on Baker and Davison was very interesting to listen to. You're right, of course, in saying that the Fourth Doctor had character quirks. But for whatever reason, they don't stand out as much for me as they do for other doctors. As for Davison, while he does bring back humanity to the Doctor, which is important, to my mind, he goes a little too far in the other direction and becomes overly human. And don't even get me started on Pertwee. The cravat looks so antique, it doesn't gel with his personality. I just don't see how he could be anybody's doctor. Anybody want to jump in on that?
Continue reading.
We've kind of, as I said, we've kind of talked about that, with the
All right.
exception of now he's picking on Pertwee, which Keith has reservations about.
Number 3,
I like
Glenn.
Pertwee.
This one, he's direct. He's calling you out now directly.
Yeah.
Glenn, you seemed very adamant in your review of Let's Kill Hitler that River was full 100% time lady. I'm afraid I'm going to have to take issue
I never
with that.
said 100%.
You said she was
No,
full.
I said she is all time lady. Keep going.
Are you making a
No.
Semantics?
Are you making a wow? She is all woman kind
No,
of comment?
no, I'm planning my rebuttal, so keep
Okay,
going.
all right. I have to take issue with that. In Good Man Goes to War, the exact line of dialogue used to describe Melody's DNA is, quote, human plus Time Lord, end quote. What's more, even after seeing the DNA, the Doctor is still convinced that Melody would be unable to regenerate. If he had seen pure Time Lord DNA on the scanner, that uncertainty would have never been there. So I've got to
And
side
you
with...
wouldn't have had to have been explained to him that it was human plus Time Lord. Granted, we needed that explained to us, but go ahead.
I'll have to side with Keith on this one and say River is only partially a time lady.
Now let me
Glenn,
let
go.
me rebut that, because you're absolutely right. They do say human plus Time Lord, but what they're doing is in that reference, it's human and Time Lord, not human
Half.
plus not half human, half Time Lord. They're saying human plus Time Lord. What I'm saying is River Song is a product of the Vortex, product of the TARDIS. She's a child of the TARDIS. She's 100%. I'm saying it now. She's 100%. I didn't say it then, but I said she was all time lady. She's 100% time lady, and she's 100% human. It's not part one, part the other. It's all one and all the other. It's all I was saying.
So pretty much
she
you're
is
saying-
all time lady and all human. She is an amalgamation, and she's different than anything that's come before her. That's what my point was. That you can't say she's half and half. That's like saying she's half Swedish and half Danish because her mom was Swedish and her dad was Danish. You can't do that. That's two parts.
But what if
She is all both. That's all I'm saying.
But if her parents were 100% Swedish and 100% Danish,
She'd still be half and
lineation,
half.
she'd be-
Yes.
yeah.
But what I'm saying is she has all of the attributes of a Time Lord, a Time Lady, Time Lord.
so
And she's got all the attributes of a human.
So
Her
it's-
DNA is
what you're saying
combined
is
as
she
the same
is
thing.
like the very first Time Lords of yonder day.
No, what I'm saying is
Because
she is
that's
a,
how
no,
they be-
what
that's
I'm
how they
saying-
got their
no,
abilities.
But they weren't human in the
Well,
first place.
they were Gallifreyan.
Well, that they were
humanoid.
They were
but
humanoid, but
it's,
they weren't
it's the
human.
human
So it's
version
like,
of a Time Lord.
It's like Fifth Element. When they're pulling up Lilu's DNA strand, and it's so densely packed because there's extra
I don't even know,
information
I don't even
packed
know
into
that there's extra. Although the line human plus
Implies extra.
implies that there's extra, that
She's
there's more there.
150%.
That's why I'm saying to be part
She's
in part,
200%.
she would have to be 50% of her DNA would have to be human. 50% of her DNA would have to be Time Lord. They
But
don't say
100%
that.
of the
They're
DNA
saying plus
is,
and plus. So that's what I'm saying. 100% and 100%. You've got all Time Lady, all.
I don't
human.
know if I'd say 100% Time Lady. I could say 50%
No,
Time
where
Lady.
are you getting that? Where are you
Because
getting 50% from?
They say plus Time Lord.
Yeah,
not
they're saying
and
plus.
Time Lord.
No, they're
That
saying
that plus makes it sound like it's partial.
plus is in addition to.
In addition to, partial.
No, but that's not saying.
I didn't see two
it's
double
not saying
helixes.
a percentage though. It's not saying it's half or part. It's saying plus. It's saying this and this. Plus is and this and
I think
this.
until they
equals
give
this.
us percentages, we can't know for sure.
Well, that's all I'm saying is that's why I say she is all time lady. She's all human, but she's also all time lady. She's an
But
amalgamation. She's one of a kind.
she's the first humanoid or human time lady.
Sure. But what I'm
Just-
saying
just
is,
like
you can't say half or part. That's
Okay.
all I'm saying. That's what I am arguing.
I can see
you
that.
cannot say part. She is not part.
Alex Kingston, if you're listening, give us a call. We'd really like to dissect your DNA. All right.
Sorry, that was a rather lengthy rebuttal, but
I didn't. You got me sold on that now. Number 4. I've rewatched the episode myself a couple of times. It's filled with great moments, but I think the best of them has to be the Doctor's interaction with Hitler. The implicit hatred in Matt Smith's face and voice.
really sold the
Look,
scene for me.
Really sold the scene. Sorry, there was a
Talk
raccoon.
about me being distracted.
Shiny.
There was a raccoon in my trash bin. I was trying to figure out what that was. Sold the scene to me, and I'm sorry, Alex, and I think that's the only way they could pull off Hitler in an episode, by making the Doctor absolutely despise him from the moment they meet. You can't humanize Hitler in the same way they did Van Gogh or Charles Dickens. It just wouldn't be right. Absolutely right. We all agree with that. Number 5, when the crew of the Tessellacta.
He's spelled it Tesselecta, yeah.
Said, quote, "We have a positive ID on the blue box," end quote. "I totally thought it was going to be on the Doctor. However, in retrospect, I don't think BBC would be too comfortable comparing their flagship character, hero to millions of children, to Hitler."
Or worse, in the way that
Worse,
they kind of
yeah.
portray it.
So that was
than
probably
Hitler.
never going to happen.
Yeah, that's a good point.
6, on the subject of the sonic cane. I also thought it was pretty superfluous, because all he ever does with it is scan the
Tesselecta.
That is my catch development. I cannot say that. Tesselecta. And the Doctor could probably just have discerned if it was a robot by examining it, considering how smart he is. But despite everything I've said about Davison, I'm very fond of his kettle and some string approach to problem solving, and I definitely feel that the sonic screwdriver is becoming overused.
I think they totally retconned it in this episode, but I will wait till we get there.
But I'll let the cane slide because it looked really, really cool.
How can you have Matt Smith come out in a tux and a top hat without having a cane?
No, the cane's fine. The cane as a Sonic is wrong.
I still think it's okay. I don't mind it.
Had the cane had an unscrewable or removable top and his Sonic was fitted down
Yeah,
inside
I wouldn't
there,
have had as much of a problem
no
with
problem,
that.
because
Yeah.
then
this
it's
was
just
an entirely different Sonic cane.
it's just an appendage.
Yes, absolutely.
Perhaps it still is.
No, because
No,
his
because his
No,
Sonic
it's
is
not
elsewhere.
his
Sonic is
Sonic, but
with-
perhaps that's a modified version of the Sonic that he
It doesn't make any difference.
That
The point
he can
is,
swap out.
The point is now you have two different Sonics,
Yes.
and it makes it a Sonic cane. What he's
But
saying
no-
is if it's still the Sonic screwdriver,
Well,
it just
I-
happens
I
to have the
know.
extra making it also functional as a cane, it's fine.
That'd be
But
way
no,
too
the
thick of a
It's
cane.
a Sonic cane. It's all.
Did
one
you see
thing.
how big that one was?
It was
like
a walk. It wasn't a walking stick. That's what
it
the
was
walking
it
stick
was
would
a
have to be.
cane.
It was a
that
cane.
you used to walk with.
Yeah, but it wasn't this big
Oh
around.
yes, it was.
No, it wasn't.
tapered
It was
down
quite
to a-
thick, yeah.
It was like an elephant tusk cane.
Well, it wasn't that big. But
It was huge. with the-
all right, see what you do, Alex. You made us redwell on things we've already discussed.
As for the Doctor's new coat, I personally liked it, but I prefer this Doctor in tweed. However, am I the only one that still laments the loss of Smith's original tweed jacket? For the entirety of Series 5, he wears a scruffier, stripeless tweed jacket that
Not
went
the
MIA
entirety.
in Christmas Carol and hasn't been seen since. An older tweed jacket looks more battered, as if it has been through a lot of adventures, just like the Doctor has. The differences between the two jackets are only small, but it is the details that count. Bring back the old tweed, he says.
Okay, I have studied in great detail Matt Smith's outfit
Great detail.
in order to cosplay properly, or as close as I can. And I did some research online, and there is an actual how to make a Matt Smith outfit based on the episodes. And one of the episodes is out of order from the original coat he gets. When he loses the coats in the Time of Angels, or no, that's Flesh and Stone, that he loses his coat. The second part of the Angel episode, he loses his coat and gets a new one. Except a couple episodes later, you see the original coat again because it was out of order, shot out of order, or aired out of order. I can't remember which. So it's not the same coat the entire time of season 5.
Thank you, Keith.
Glenn looked like he was about to fall asleep.
I'm glad that that's important to you. To be quite honest with you, I sat down and watched all of season 5 and thought it was the same coat the whole time.
The first time
I didn't pay attention.
The first time I watched
wasn't
it,
that in detail.
You are so not a fashionista.
No, for sure.
The first time I watched it, I thought it was the same coat the entire time.
I'm also not cosplaying like Keith has. He's done a lot of research and study because he cosplays that Doctor.
Yeah.
So
Well, and
that's the only reason I would really know. I would notice the tie difference just because it's obvious.
The tie is obvious because I did notice that occasionally, not as often as you did, but yeah, that it was blue sometimes.
Again, it's one of those things that would make sense within universe. He picks up this outfit out of the hospital, so who knows who it was? I mean, it probably was tatty and a little torn, and it belonged to somebody who was in a coma or something. I don't know. That guy's
I don't believe that it belonged to another doctor.
That poor doctor. That poor doctor got off shift and was like, "Where are my clothes?"
Yeah.
So then,
or several, because
even better. Yeah, even better. Then he got all of his ensemble, so everybody was missing one item.
I'm missing my jacket. I'm missing my shoes. Where's my bow tie? I don't know. Yeah. But so then he has it. He does lose it, and then he probably just went down to wardrobe and went, "Well, I really like this. I want something like this," and pulled something else out.
Yeah.
And for those of you that are against the new coat, you notice it didn't make a return appearance in the next episode that aired.
Well, even by the end of this episode, of that episode.
Yeah, you say it. Notice it didn't reappear, but we all
so
know
far.
we all know that this episode was supposed to have been played in the first part.
Oh, that's true. I didn't think about that. So anyway,
but didn't he put the tweed back on by the end of?
He did. He left in the tweed.
Yeah. So
I liked the coat.
It was okay.
Which might have been intentionally reshot so that it would work into this episode. That little section of him putting the tweed back on. Maybe next episode we'll see the trench coat.
I don't know. The trench coat is just so dark for this Doctor.
Don't get ahead of ourselves here, but I'm not even sure we'll see the Doctor in the next episode. Did you notice that in the coming soon?
He was not appeared in any of the
Oh yeah, that's true. So this might be a Doctor Light episode.
This might be a Doctor Free.
Well,
anyway, go ahead.
They might bookend it.
This email's long enough. We need to quit tangenting.
Number 8, I'm sending this to you on a Tuesday, so Night Terrors is still a few days away. As a result, I can't really comment on it yet, so I'll just say that I've got my fingers crossed for Mark Gatiss.
Oh, it was a Gatiss episode.
Yes, it
was. He
did
redeem himself for every other crap he's done.
Yes.
Besides Sherlock, which I enjoyed his Sherlock episode.
I've seen a few of his other works. He really is an excellent writer, but so far his Doctor Who scripts really haven't been matched up to that excellency. We agree. Hopefully, as Gatiss become more creative freedom on this story than in his previous ones, his talent will shine through. And I think it did.
I think he did, yeah.
Sorry, said this would be short and sweet. I've blabbered on for ages. Just one more point to go. Number 9. When we first sent you feedback, both me and Mark mentioned our fan series, Doctor Who Reincarnated. Since then, we've been pretty quiet about it. However, on September 1st, which is this Thursday coming, which now it's past, our first short story will be uploaded at noon. We plan on releasing new stories once a month, and we're starting off with short stories as a dry run for some longer stories, which will be coming at some point. If you want to check it out, we would be much obliged, as any feedback from you guys would be great feedback, especially from Sean, owing as he does a prestigious Writers Award. Have I mentioned my Writers Award this episode yet?
You haven't, yes.
Did you get a Writers Award?
I did get a Writers Award for a short script that we wrote for a short film. Where was I? Lost my place. I was talking about my Writers Award. If you like it, we'll be over the moon. If you don't, well, you can always lie to make us feel better. Thanks again for such an amusing podcast. Apologies for using your feedback section to promote my fan series. I'm going to cover my keyboard with Marmite now to make sure I don't type anymore, so goodbye for now. Alex. P.S. Don't worry, I was just kidding about Pertwee, cravats, or bow tie.
That's why I didn't comment. He was kidding.
And if you'd like Traveling the Vortex to pimp your wares, by all means, send us some feedback. No, actually, I feel bad because I read that email earlier in the week when it came in, and I still have not. I've been swamped now that I'm back in school full time, I haven't gone to the site yet, but I intend to. And in fact, there's now I'm going to preface this by saying, don't get your hopes up, guys, because I'm in school full time as well as working and everything else.
I am going to try to find the time to go read it. I did not.
Well, it's not even
Glenn
that.
was off.
I'm toying with the idea of possibly submitting something if you guys are interested. So I have to finish Cyberman Bob first, and I don't know when I'm going to get to do that either. So
I see Alex Smart going.
Yeah, I hope. Maybe they're going, oh God, we don't want him anywhere near this. What did we do that for? But,
please don't come near it.
So Just
let
because,
Sean know either way.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely let me know either way.
If you're not interested, he won't spend the time, or he will spend the time and post it on our website instead.
The head goes where the head goes. Sometimes.
Well, speaking of Mark, he's our next bit of feedback. If I'm not incorrect,
you are correct.
Okay. Subject is Doctor Who?
Question mark?
Yeah. Mark writes, "Let's Kill Hitler made me wonder. What is the question? The first question ever asked in the universe. Now, I wonder what was the first question asked on November 23rd, 1963. Doctor Who? Spoilers. There were a few things in Let's Kill Hitler that I noticed which make me think, no, Moffat wouldn't have thought of that. The first one was if the question was Doctor Who, and he's quoting Doctor Who with a question mark.
I'm the Doctor. Doctor Who?
And the second thing was how the Doctor died beside the lake at Silinko. Silinko, yeah. Silinko is very similar to the word silence, which he's right. It's spelled Silenco. Silinko. It seems stupid. I know.
I noticed that too.
It seems stupid, I know, but it's either a coincidence or Moffat's crazy mind at work. Anyway, those are my those are my theories on the future of Series 6 from Mark. I wish I had intended to go. In fact, we're going to be reviewing Our Unearthly Child. Maybe we'll revisit this and
look at that serendipity at work.
Well, if by the time we get to that point, it will have this series will have ended. So we'll
and
see
we
if
might know the answer to the first question ever.
We've in fact talked about the fact that we're seeing the last episode to date, followed by the next week being the first episode to ever air, and ironically enough, and that's going to be right around near the November 23rd. I mean, it's a little earlier than that.
I suppose we could save it for the anniversary, but I kind of like the.
I like the way.
I like the symbolism.
But it's part of our quasi 49th anniversary celebration of Doctor Who. In order, so we're spending the whole month of November saying, 48. Sorry, yeah, it's 2000. Yeah, 2013.
2013 is 50.
Sorry, 48th anniversary.
Matt Smith would be all over you.
Yes.
I wonder.
But no, that's a good question. I'd like to go back now and find out what the first question in Doctor Who was, and if that ends up being the...
How awesome would it be if Moffat somehow worked it so the series ends up being circular?
Secular. That's kind of cool.
Secular, like it
Not
comes
secular.
back circular.
It comes back around to
the
Totter's Lane, and
yeah, like
you're nodding like you know. That's so cute.
They've actually sort of tried that in McCoy's era, although it ended up being
not quite so much.
Yeah, and it didn't work as well as it possibly could have. But Remembrance of the Daleks is. We end up back at Trotter's Lane, and it kind of harkens back to that first episode. But yeah, it would be neat to come back around and do something like that.
For the series finale, if it ever actually, if heaven forbid, they actually do end the series for good, that would be a great way to end it. So you could go back and start all over again.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out on a limb here. I think it will.
Oh, you think so?
I think it's going to play into the contents of my still sealed envelope.
Oh.
That's my theory. I'm sticking to it. Who's next?
Next bit of feedback from John Boy.
Hi, John Boy. We haven't seen you on Friday Night Who recently.
No.
We're concerned.
I would have seen him this weekend, but we didn't end up going to...
you had to have a staycation instead of a vacation. I hope you're satisfied.
This is Labor Day weekend, and so this is the weekend we always go to my dad's families and do a big project. And Holly and I ended up we had plans with her dad this time, so I didn't get to see him this weekend. So John, missed seeing you this weekend and the rest of the family.
Anyways, John Boy says, just listening to this week's discussion about K9 and was wondering, as much as Keith likes K9, has he seen the Disney Channel series? I do not believe that this has ever aired here in the States, but I was able to find it online. My oldest daughter is in love with both this series and K9. I thought I just thought I would check and see if you guys knew about it. Keep up the good work.
Absolutely.
John, what?
In fact, it's a series that runs in the UK on Disney XD, which we do have Disney XD here in the States, but we do not. But they do not run
K9.
the same programming, and K9 is one of those that is.
And that's the new futuristic K9.
It is.
I don't like it,
and I haven't.
You haven't seen it yet.
I saw trailers for it. I saw
haven't-
pictures of K9.
I haven't seen it.
It does sound like John Leeson.
There is,
but
yeah.
It
It is
John Leeson,
John
isn't it?
Leeson doing the voice. Yeah.
Okay.
And there's an explanation for why he
It's a different K9.
why he becomes I don't know, Mark V. Yes.
So
But,
it is now.
Yeah, it does.
By giving that explanation, that would be technically in universe.
It technically does.
It's
Now
set
I haven't
slightly in the
haven't
future,
seen it.
isn't
I've only
I
read.
gotta watch
but
it now.
It does transfer from modern to future, and there's a reason why. It's
like Batman Beyond.
Yeah, kind of. But I haven't seen any of it. I've meant to. Of course, I've got to go back and finish Sarah Jane. So Sarah Jane Adventures, which I haven't gone back and done. So
Which we will be reviewing at some point.
Any other spin-off series has been kind of put on the back burner for now. So, but we'll definitely check into that. And I'm glad that
I saw
I'm
a
glad that
trailer
Zoe
for
likes
it. Yeah, it's good that the youngins like it. I just like the Mark 4. Is it Mark 4 or 3? I can't remember the Mark right now that we have in Doctor Who.
Well, the one we just watched was Mark 2.
I like the
Pirate
classic
Planet.
looking.
Well,
K9.
Mark 1, 2, 3, and
And
4
4
are all essentially the same.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
Look,
like
they have
that
slight variations,
style
but-
of K9.
The K9 that premiered, the new K9 that premiered at the end of School Reunion would be Mark IV.
Yes.
So he technically is the current
Okay.
Yes.
version.
Yeah,
It just for clarification purposes, but
but is it technically, since it didn't come from the factory? He fixed.
we haven't seen the episode yet, so I can't comment on that. We'll explain later.
Okay.
Later.
Coming up next, Tangent Time from Mark Lee. Didn't we already hear from Mark?
We
We
did.
just did. Well, before John Boy.
Bring it on. Mark writes, "Hey guys, just a quick message as I meant to ask it on my last email. Well, that would explain it. I was wondering, who are your favorite and least favorite doctors? I'm just wondering because after having a long talk with Alex, I found that Davidson is my least favorite doctor. I was wondering if you guys came to the same conclusion and your reasons why. That should add extra 5 minutes to the podcast. Sorry to take up some of your tangent time." From Mark. I thought about this earlier, and I personally, I have difficulty saying this person is my least favorite. Because least implies a negative connotation for me.
Well, if you were,
I understand the question. I understand where he's coming from, but it just it's an area that I'm not sure I'm comfortable going into because I don't want to dog on anybody. You know, every doctor has things that they bring to the table that can be enjoyed for different reasons. I have doctors I prefer or enjoy more than some of the others. But
he's not saying the doctor
that's
that
a
you
very-
hate. He's
No,
just saying
yeah.
your
answer.
least.
well, it is. That's honestly that's how I feel about it.
Yeah.
If you had to
Wish
pin
and
me
wash
down,
and just tell us who your least
if you
favorite doctor is.
if you had to pin me down,
I'm pinning you down.
I would say Colin Baker, not for anything that he failed at, but just because he's the one I'm the most unfamiliar with. I've only seen a tiny handful of Colin Baker
I
episodes.
think when you choose your least favorite and favorite doctors, you also have to take into account the storytelling and the stories they have that they are a part of.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And Colin Baker, unfortunately, presided over Who at a strange time in its in its existence.
I could see how Colin Baker would be a lot of people's least favorites.
and I think that's unfair.
It's unfair to the actor.
It's
yes.
unfair to the actor. It's unfair to that characterization of the Doctor. Everything I've heard says that the Big Finish. Everybody has said the Big Finish stuff is really written to Colin Baker's strengths, and that's the way he should have been portrayed on television. I haven't listened to any of those yet, so it's. I don't know. I just don't like. Which is your least favorite? I don't know. I'm not bagging on you, Mark. I don't want you to think that
Well,
I'm uncomfortable with the question, and because you asked it.
The way I view it is, all of the doctors are awesome, and the Doctor as himself is our favorite character. Which incarnation do you like the least?
Which incarnation do you like the least, Keith?
I would have to say,
I just figured out a way out of that. Damn. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, what's your way out of it?
The Valeyard.
Now stop there because
I can't go any further into it.
Further than that.
It's.
I mean, by that same token, you could say
It's
Shock
amazing
the
that
Doctor.
you guys have to think so much about
I
this.
thought
I have
about
two
it.
clear favorite and least favorite
Well,
doctors.
I think it's obvious who my favorite is.
Well, yeah, we know.
I don't
that.
have to say.
that's why I didn't ask Sean who his favorite is, because I know who his favorite is, and I think we've made clear who his favorite is.
I think
It's Tom, right?
Who?
I think my least favorite is William Hartnell.
Really?
Yeah. Just the conjury, grumpy doctors, I don't like that quality in him. There were some aspects in the Aztecs that I liked of Hartnell's Doctor. But then again, I've only seen a microcosm of what
I suppose that's true,
capable of.
because we've seen... Which Hartnells have we seen recently? We've seen Daleks, we've seen
Daleks.
Dalek Invasion
Daleks.
Earth, and the Aztecs. Those are really the only ones we've reviewed so far.
Yeah.
And those are all relatively early in his...
Well, Daleks Invasion is rather
they
later.
are. No,
Well,
they're
it's
all
first season,
still
I think,
Ian
still.
and Barbara. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess that's true.
So, maybe... And maybe that's something that...
But yeah,
I think he does evolve a little bit as a... I mean, he's still grumpy. There's no you can't change the grumpy. But I think he has those attributes that do grow on you as his series progresses.
And that, as we further along with watching Hartnell, I may change my position on it. But as of right now, that's who it is.
Okay.
Mine also is William Hartnell. My least favorite Doctor is the first Doctor, and I think because the series is so different at that point, and I give William Hartnell and the first Doctor credit for heralding in a new type of show, a new type of science fiction,
And giving us so
I
many
think all of
iconic
that,
characters.
Yeah, all of that goes to the writers and the crew and the production. I mean, that all, it's all one thing. And William Hartnell holds a special place because he is the first and is number one.
Yeah.
But he has, for me, the least enjoyable stories. He has the least enjoyable personality of all Doctors.
Oh yeah, you almost don't care about the Doctor at some of the points.
Right.
When
I
he's
think
in peril, you care more about his companions.
And that's what I think his... And later, I think the Doctor plays a more important role in a lot of the stories. As Sean was saying, he sort of evolves as a character as we go along. He does get a little more likable, a little less crotchety. However, by the last season, he feels like he's kind of phoning it in. But I think that's because he was ready to move on, and it was becoming very tiresome for him as a character. But yes, I enjoy Ian and Barbara and Susan and Ben and Polly and Vicky, and I just all of those people are what make that first season work for me. And there's still some enjoyable stories. There's just not. The Doctor's not as enjoyable in those stories.
Yeah.
And
I
so
think
that's why he becomes my least favorite. Now, I would have said, if I hadn't seen all of Sylvester McCoy's run, when I first started watching the Seventh Doctor, that would have been my least favorite Doctor. I did not enjoy McCoy in the beginning. I think I loved him in Mark of the Rani because they were taking a certain approach with him. And then it was almost like but he didn't have his footing yet. I understand that, but from his second story up through probably until we get into some of the Ace stories, I just don't like him. But now that falls down to the fact that a lot of his stories aren't very enjoyable. However, when he really gets his footing and becomes the Doctor and the stories get a lot darker and the character gets darker, I really end up enjoying him a lot. So he's just one of those ones that, had I only ever seen the first season of McCoy, he would have been my least favorite Doctor. But because I'm looking at the overall picture, and I end up coming to like him later in his tenure, he comes out of that and maybe becomes my second least favorite Doctor. I mean, I can't. He went from bad to good, but I can't give him. Can't give him top props.
He still had the bad.
That's right.
I'd be curious. I'd be curious to maybe this is the time to bring it out. At Dragon Con this week, which Sylvester McCoy was at, the panelists sprung kind of an impromptu thing on him, and they talked about the storytelling during the Seventh Doctor's era, and kind of made the dig. Had you had better material to work with, what kind of Doctor would we have gotten? And they presented him with Matt Smith's Pandorica speech.
I need to watch that video.
And said, "Would you?" And so he gave a cold reading of it, but they basically had the dialogue printed off, and he read it at Dragon Con. Woo! It was cool. A lot of rolling R's, but
Well, that's what he does. Right?
yeah. But even as a cold reading, where it wasn't material that he was familiar with, and McCoy was actually kind of uncomfortable doing it because I don't think he wanted to step on anybody's toes with it.
Oh yeah.
But the next comment that was posted underneath the video was, "Wow, can we get all the doctors to record that speech and then edit them together?" And man, the goose flesh jumped up on my arms because like, yes, I want to hear it. So
Well, that's such a great speech.
it is, and of course we're referring to the. All of you buzzing around in your ships up there, let somebody else come first.
Yeah.
So, Sylvester McCoy doing that was way cool,
I'll figure
and
that out.
it fits in with your I like the darker
Yeah.
version of it better. So,
Oh,
definitely, we'll throw that up on the show notes for you.
I'm assuming your favorite's Tom.
Yes, my favorite is Tom Baker. Yeah.
I thought you said as much. I was just
Yeah.
double checking.
I think we've said as much repeatedly.
Yeah.
Next bit.
Is this Fidel?
Fidel.
Fidel, and we hope we're saying that name right. And I don't. It's Fidel J, but is it J Fidel or is it Fidel J? Is it just how the name field comes up? I guess it says Mark Lee when he puts his in.
It's Fidel J.
It's
Okay.
one field
This is
that you
from
fill out.
Fidel J. And okay, sorry, I was looking for a subject line, and there isn't one because this actually came to us through the website, and apparently it doesn't allow you to put a subject line in there. But it says, 35 episodes into this Vortex traveling, I figured I may as well finally send in my first bit of feedback.
Yay!
Right up front, though, kudos to yet another entertaining and informative podcast of tyrants and dictators. It's always fun. The Vortex crew. It's always fun. The Vortex crew's thoughts on Who, as well as the thoughts of some of your more frequent feedbackers as well. So, with that out of the way, I have just a few thoughts / queries stemming from your Let's Kill Hitler remarks on podcast 35. First of all, I think Alex Kingston did an amazing job with Pre-River Song. She looked to be having loads of fun playing up the eviler aspects of Melody / River, and watching the transformation as she started to understand the consequences of her actions was great. Next, just a quick note about the Doctor's clothes.
And I'm going to throw this out there. Watching Alex Kingston go from evil to good in the span of an hour, much more believable than watching Hayden Christensen go from good to evil over the 2.5 hours of Revenge of the Sith.
I'm sorry, I could watch a piece of wood and it'd be more believable than anything Hayden Christensen does.
I like Hayden Christensen, but I'm going to blame all that on Lucas.
Fidel goes on to say, and I'll back up here a little bit. Next, just a quick note about the Doctor's clothes. It would be a mighty waste of the TARDIS, most likely, immense wardrobe selection to wear the same thing all the time. I would have to agree, especially in the wardrobe shot we get in Christmas Invasion.
Yeah, that's true.
I lost my place now, Sean. We were talking about wardrobe set. Okay.
We have spent more time talking about the Doctor's wardrobe. That is the next episode
Well,
I'm going to write. The Doctor's wardrobe.
Well, I'll tell you, we're going to have to do an entire episode on wardrobe, I think, eventually.
Well, there's so much wardrobe to be had.
And finally, with the quick cameos of Rose, Martha, and Donna, I got to thinking about the 50th anniversary and which of the companions will be coming back. Which is funny because we've talked about Doctors coming back over and over and over again.
But we haven't talked about
companions coming back and how
which would be cool to see a lot of them come back.
He goes on to say the most obvious would be Heartbreaking. And Heartbreaking companion I would have wanted to see was Sarah Jane Smith. I would agree.
Yeah.
To see her interact with Eccleston or possibly McGann would have been fantastic, as Sarah Jane, surrounded by so many doctors, has to already be the stuff of fan fiction wet dreams. Speaking of McGann, and hoping upon hope that they use the Eighth Doctor, a dream pairing for me that has no hope of happening would be to bring in Richard E. Grant to play the Shaka Ninth Doctor, as McGann and Grant were in the movie. They were in the movie with Nail, and
With Nail and I is the
with
name
Nail
of it.
and I. Okay, I got you. We're in the movie with Nail and I, one of their earliest film roles. I think you had brought that up.
I did bring that up at one point in time, and I haven't watched it yet. It's kind of on my list.
Anyway, with a bit of wishful thinking, I shall end this and await the next episode of your fab show. Fidel J. Oh, he signs it Fidel J, so you guys are out.
It must be Fidel J. Interestingly enough, Fidel, Glenn supposedly has a perfectly logical, wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey way of bringing the Schalke Doctor into the universe.
It's just a matter of putting it down on paper is the problem. So.
Well, you need to email it to Stephen Moffat just to get that wheel going.
That's true. We can get him in there and get it done. I do. I'm working on it. I'll formulate a way. Even if I don't put it to paper, I will someday explain, because I have this vague idea of how to do it. It's just I have to make it believably possible. Does that make sense? I have kind of a concept of how you could do it.
You just got to make it plausible.
Right, but I got to make it plausible. So.
Give me just enough to hang my hat on.
Yes.
That's the hook.
That's how it is with Doctor Who.
Well, people laugh when I say that, but it's I enjoy a large number of crappy movies, just because they can. I'll freely admit that, because they can be dumb fun or whatever it happens to be. One thing that really bothers me is when, if you're going to set up early that this is the physics of this particular universe,
you got to stick with it.
Stick with it, and I'm okay with that. You have given me just enough to, okay, I'm good with that, and I'm with you, and I'll go. But if you're going to change the rules halfway through, then you've taken that away from me, and I can't do that. And that's just one example. But I've often said, give me just enough of a hook that I can hang my hat on, and I'll go with you.
Yeah.
And that I think is what you need. As long as you have that hook of plausibility, we'll be set.
Agree. Well, thanks for your email.
Yeah, definitely.
We appreciate
we hope to
having
hear from you again.
A long-time listener now be a first-time writer.
Long time. Isn't it insane that we have long-time listeners?
I'm
still bowled over by that.
36 now.
People are listening.
Yeah,
that's just
it's fantastic.
Wild.
And it's great to hear from people that we haven't heard from, because it reassures us that there are more than just a few we hear from.
More than all 7 of them.
Not saying that.
Right, remember?
Oh yeah, 8 now.
Oh, now we have 9.
Yeah, this is not. This is just becoming a really awful running joke here.
Can we get into double digits?
Next bit of
I want to point something out here, because we have failed to do this, and he tweeted us and told us that he did this.
I did not see this tweet.
Jennings.
I did not see this tweet.
Tweeted out, and I went and verified this, that he gave us a review on iTunes.
Oh!
And he did, and thank you very much for that.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
I intended,
absolutely.
I don't have access to iTunes here on Sean's computer, but
sorry,
I'm
the Neanderthal.
I
don't have access to
grab
iTunes
that
on my
so we could read it out.
laptop, so.
But thank you so much for that review. And if anybody wants to add reviews to iTunes for us, that would be fantastic.
Absolutely.
We have to get so many before you can, or so many ratings before we can actually, our ratings will show up on there as well. So if you'd like to just hop on there, give us 5 stars. We'd appreciate that as well.
Well, and you can do it more than once, just not in a day.
Oh, is that right?
Correctly.
Oh, okay. I wasn't aware of that.
I think you can go on and
so go on there every day. Vote often, and what's the phrase? Vote
early, vote often.
Yeah, vote early, vote often.
If I'm wrong about that, let me know. But I'm pretty sure you can at least give it a star rating.
Yeah.
Traveling the Vortex, not above pimping ourselves.
So I want to give Jenny Richmond a shout out for that.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
I presume at some point you can pull that up and send it to me so that I can see it, because I don't have
I'll copy and paste it for you.
That would work.
You won't load iTunes on your computer.
No, I won't. If the federal
It's not a
government gave me
Neanderthal
money,
thing.
then
it's
I
not
would.
a Neanderthal thing. It's a protesting thing. But
No, it isn't. I'm actively trying to buy a Mac, but the
You've
federal
been
government
against-
won't give me money.
You've been against an iPod since they came out.
I am against iPods. iPods
The main
are
reason you have an iTunes.
iPods are worthless, and here's why. Oh wow! Look at my new iPod. I can put 6 billion gigs worth of music on here, and I can listen to a new song, and I won't hear any repeats for 7 months straight. Why? You are never going to use that feature ever.
What do you mean?
You're never going to stay up 24 hours a day for 7 months straight to not hear a repeat song.
Of course you're not. But
You know
Put
what?
your iPod on
we're
shuffle.
talking 7 months of playtime.
But that's beside the point. I have music that I listen to, and I have music that I listen to more frequently than other music. I have this music. It's available. I can go pull it up at any point in time I want to listen to it.
But you can't listen to it in your car.
Sure, I could.
If you think
you
ahead of
go through
time
the
and burn a
process of
CD.
burning a CD and putting it in your car,
It's
absolutely.
available on your phones now. That phones will play.
But phones are the same thing as an iPod now.
but that's-
Phones are the
yeah,
same feature as
no.
an iPod.
This is just it. iPod is iPod. Phone is phone plus iPod.
Well, that's
if
why
I'm going to
there's
go
the
work
iPhone.
out, this is the funny part where you laugh. If I was to go work out and I wanted to have music with me, what would I have? Okay, I've got my iPod. Well, then I've got my phone because in case of emergency you need to be contacted or whatnot. Okay, so now I'm carrying two pieces of equipment.
You're just arguing for the invention of the iPhone. It's all you're arguing
superfluous.
for.
It's
iPod came out. iPod came out.
Superfluous before phones reached that level.
iPods
when I got my iPod, when Glenn got
nobody
iPod.
Came out
nobody
before
made
phones
any
were featuring
buzz.
Those sort of MP3.
Nobody made any buzz about MP3 players when they came out,
Absolutely
but iPhones became
iPods
became all the
did.
rage.
That's absolutely
it doesn't make
right.
any sense to
they
me.
branded it
And
well.
Because they branded it well, absolutely.
And you were one of those people. You and Dave got into a who's is bigger contest with your
Actually,
iPods.
we couldn't have got whose was bigger because we had the same size iPod. We had the same size, same style, same everything.
We spent how many years did we spend in pre-production on 1221, and we got together once a week to talk about stuff, and inevitably an hour was spent talking about whose iPod was cooler,
No, we
and
didn't talk about
who had engraving, and who had this, and what are you getting on yours, and blah blah blah. I don't care.
We never talked about whose was better. We just talked about how much
How
cool
awesome
stuff
it
we
was.
had on them. Yeah, on them.
You were just jealous.
He was
because you
just
didn't have
jealous.
one.
That's what it boils down to.
I-
Is there were three of us hanging together, and two of us had toys, and one of us didn't, and he got jealous, and now he's ranting against iPods and making this podcast go on one of the furthest tangents we've ever gone.
You spent an hour
in the
talking
history.
about light bulbs last week. Don't bring that up.
No, but that wasn't a tangent. That was in response to a challenge. He challenged us to talk
You're
about
challenging
light
me
bulbs.
about iPods. I don't like them.
And the form that many of our listeners might listen to us through.
I encourage that. I'm happy to
Most
hear
people
that people
That's
are,
how I listen to any
people
podcast.
are listening to me rant about the method that they choose to listen to the podcast. That is so great and encouraging. I personally
will
could
agree
care
with you
less.
that
I don't
they're
want
a bit
one.
too expensive.
Oh, and they're expensive. But no, I'm actively trying to get a Mac, and if I get one, then I pretty much am stuck with iTunes because that's what you know.
Well, you're not. There's other options, but iTunes is the big one.
Well,
You
see,
won't
there
be able
go.
to use Windows Media Player.
Yeah, exactly.
I use that because it came with it. It's like my wallet. The pictures in the wallet, they came with it. I don't know these people.
Let's get through this feedback so we can get through the episodes.
Chrissy sent us an email.
Hi, Chrissy.
Hi, Vortex boys.
I bet Chrissy doesn't have an iPod.
I bet she does.
I bet she does too. Let us know, Chrissy.
Don't let me down, Chrissy.
Here's what I want. I want one piece of feedback from every listener, and all you have to put in that feedback, even if you want to put it in the subject line, is put whether you're an iPod owner or not. That's all I want to know from you.
Just put yes or no.
Yes or well, no. I want iPod owner or not, because if you say yes or no, it could have been in response to some other question that Sean's going to ask in about 10 minutes. So, yeah, I want iPod owner or not. That's all you have to do. Just
All
put it
that
in,
will prove-
Send it to Traveling the Vortex or feedback at travelingthevortex.com, or go to the website and click on the feedback button.
All that will prove is that people are sheep.
No, see now he's calling you sheep if you are owners. Now they won't send it in. Well, I don't want to be a sheep.
That's right.
Sometimes there are perks to being a sheep. In the case of an iPod.
So who's next, Keith?
Chrissy, she says, "Hi, Vortex boys.
No,
I
there are
once-
no perks to being a sheep.
I once hunted far and wide for the special commentary on the Five Doctors DVD.
Oh, cool.
So I figured I would impart my knowledge to you. The Easter egg is on disc 1. Go to the special feature. Are you writing this down?
He doesn't have the chance. I do, and I already found it.
Okay.
Did you listen to it?
I didn't listen to it. I started it just to make sure that's what it was, but yeah, I didn't listen to the whole thing. I didn't have time to watch that. I was watching too many other movies.
The Easter egg is on disc 1. Go to the special features menu, then select audio options. Scroll down to Companion's Commentary and push the right arrow button on the remote. A green Doctor Who logo will appear.
By the way, that's how you always know when you found the Easter egg on Doctor Who discs. Is it'll be an
green-
Easter egg logo, or it'll be a Doctor Who logo. And
Oh,
it turns green.
okay, that's good. A green Doctor Who.
I do
Select
enjoy
that.
a bit of consistency in my Easter egg.
But they're not always in the same place. So that's,
No. But
you know,
just
you want to make sure
green.
you found it.
Because, when you find a green Easter egg, it's usually a bad thing.
It's been sitting there too long. It's from last Easter.
Select that, and you will have found a special commentary with Phil Collinson, Helen Rayner, and David Tennant. You are very welcome.
Thank you, Chrissy.
Mark, the reasons you cited for not liking Peter Davison's Doctor are the very reasons that he's my favorite. It just comes down to tastes. and everyone's are different, and that's okay. I promise I will not come after you with a giant stick of celery. And Glenn, I do not hate Tom Baker.
Mark would probably slather it with Marmite.
And then eat it.
Oh, God. Oh, I can visualize that.
Just because you wouldn't have any other flavor to mask than Marmite's either.
But the celery's bad in and of itself. Oh,
celery's good.
don't go there,
It
Glenn.
doesn't have much flavor.
It doesn't. We just put a little peanut butter on the top of it. It's fantastic.
You know what? You know what's really good about peanut butter and celery?
Cheese whiz. You ever had cheese whiz on celery? Oh my god!
You know what the best thing about peanut butter and celery is?
It's a vehicle to get the peanut butter to your mouth.
Peanut butter.
Yeah.
You know what the only good thing about peanut butter and celery is? Peanut butter.
Yeah.
You know what I like about Ritz crackers? They're crackers, not that they're tiny little edible plates. Just because he's not my favorite doesn't.
Who's not your favorite? What?
I'm going back to her email. And Glenn, I do not hate Tom Baker. Just because he's not my favorite doesn't mean I completely hate him. Stop spreading these crazy rumors.
Okay, I'll stop sending all those emails out to people that to bombard you with spam.
And tweeting you saying,
all my Tom Baker fans that. No.
Those were my thoughts about the podcast.
I know she doesn't hate Tom Baker, by the way.
I'll send in my review of Night Terrors later this week, after it airs or some crazy time like that.
Unless you've got a TARDIS and you're able to do it before.
Thanks again for the email, Chrissy. It's
Yes,
always
Chrissy,
great to hear
thank you.
from you. And we've got one more bits before we launch into the Pirate Plans. And that's Pirate Planet. Which has plants on it. Oh.
Pirate plants. Yar! I bet pirate plants look like celery.
Oh, you know what? We're up to 10 now. This is another first-time writer, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it is technically.
technically.
He's contacted us.
We've corresponded
we
with
have
him, but
corresponded.
he hasn't written into the show.
Well, we're going to get more
read
than just
back.
some writing here. So.
That's right.
This is audio feedback, which I'm going to read, and then we'll listen to it.
Actually, you're going to read the first part, we're going to listen, and then you'll read the...
Right.
Yeah.
From Dr. Phil. Not the Dr. Is it Dr. Phil or Dr. Philip? I suppose Dr. Phil kind of has that,
Well, I think his
stigma attached.
show is called Dr. Phil's Adventures in...
It's not Dr. Phil McGraw.
No, it
No,
is not.
not
But
Dr.
he's
Phil
cleverly using the Dr. Phil...
And he is a doctor.
Moniker.
yeah.
Which we find out here. Keepers and Defenders of the Vortex of Rassilon.
I like that.
Keepers and Defenders of the Vortex. That's even cooler than Vortex Boys, is it?
I didn't say that. I just said I liked it. I like them both equally.
All right, then. Oh, so it's not which one you like least.
No, I just said I liked it. Don't make this a contest.
I have to admit, I could get used to being called a keeper and defender of the Vortex. I'd be a bit all right with that.
Yeah.
Where did I go here? Just sending in some audio feedback to defend Two Doctors a smidge, but also to aim you in the direction of a few audio memoirs to give you some more perspective on the 3 Doctors, the 5 Doctors, the 2 Doctors, and Dimensions in Time. Thanks for recording the Series 5 segment. I will get to that soon for editing everyone's together, promise, which we mentioned that we recorded a small segment for a musical review that he is going to be doing on his podcast. Here's a link for the feedback in wave form.
And so here is that feedback.
Dr. Phil here at Adventures in Time, Space, and Music, finally catching up on Traveling the Vortex. So hi, Glenn, Sean, and Keith. I'm just writing in, or calling in, with a little bit of a defense for the 2 Doctors. There's a few other things you guys didn't bring up, and me, for one, I would love for the Rassilon Imprimatur, the symbiotic nuclei that allows a Time Lord to be partnered with their TARDIS, to be something that comes into play in regarding to solving the 12 regeneration thing down the road. But nonetheless, Peter Howell's score for the 2 Doctors is fabulous. And in fact, I would say that you probably get your best theme for the Centaurans from this story it's almost a tie, really, with Invasion of Time, because the theme they have in the Dudley Simpson writes in that story is also very strong. Anyway, one thing I think might be enlightening, and this is no way to argue with the points you guys had. I was always thinking of it's always good to have more information and more perspectives, and I would just aim you in the direction for a couple things in regards to the Three Doctors. Barry Letz's Who and Me, which is a book, but also the first part of it was recorded as an audiobook a few years back. He finally revised it shortly before his death, and I've yet to read the later parts of it, but but listening to him reminisce about all of his time on Doctor Who was great, as well as two Big Finish memoirs, which is the Nicholas Courtney one, is The Brigadier, which covers all the way back from being Brett Vian all the way through Dimensions in Time and after that. As well as JNT's, because we don't have many examples of him being able to stand up and defend himself for some of his decisions. And yes, the JNT era is way too self-referential to the history of the show, and sometimes even incorrectly so, which is where all that season 6B, not our current series 6B, but classic series idea that the Troughton Doctor worked for the Time Lords in between the War Games and Spearhead from space before he finally fulfills his sentence of exile. Anyway, keep up the great work as always, guys, and hopefully you guys can check that out soon, and looking forward to the Key to Time. And what's interesting, Key to Time, musically speaking, is after Dudley Simpson stopped having access to the Radiophonic Workshop to use the EMS-3 synthesizer, so you have a very different sounding Simpson in Series 16 and 17. Really, by Series 17, his hands are really tied than what we hear before. So there's some really neat stuff, and especially Reboss is sublime. So anyway, take care, guys, and have fun. Bye-bye.
Yeah, and Dr. Phil, I have to say, and I feel this is twice now. You have contacted us about something and made me realize that for as big a proponent and fan as I am of, the music in that was great or fantastic or I really enjoyed this, we don't talk about it enough.
We don't.
And there are so many things that I regret. It's like, because you're right. It just it becomes part of the experience. It washes over you, and then I don't think to talk about it when we review things. And
and if the music is done right, it's a subconscious thing.
Yes,
you subconsciously are aware that it's there, but you're focusing on what's going on, and it brings drama to it that unless you're thinking about the music while you're watching it, if it's done right, you don't think about the music at all.
I think that's true, and I think that's where Phil has the advantage because he has such a musical background. I think that comes to the forefront because he notices it. But I agree. I think when the music is done to enhance or set the mood or the feeling or the emotions in a scene or a show, then yeah, it's done right. And there are times that I think that I probably enjoy an episode more than I do because of music, but it's more of a subconscious thing, or vice versa. I may like the content of a episode, but might like it slightly less because subconsciously the music didn't fit.
There was one episode that we watched, I don't remember if we mentioned it.
Dalton the Bannerman is the one that springs to my mind immediately.
I'm thinking of the Nintendo music.
That was back in, wasn't that the Silurians when we...
No, I don't think it was that old. It was more recent than that.
Oh, it was a McCoy one, and now you say that. Maybe it was Survival. Was it Survival?
It might have been Survival. It might have had that Nintendo original NES sound to it.
Yeah. I remember us bringing up. I remember bringing up in Silurians, Doctor Who and the Silurians, how we brought up how some of the incidental music was just. We didn't like it, but it didn't add to the mood in any way at all. But
and it's funny when it's good music, you tend to not notice it, but when it's bad, it stands out.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, great comments, Phil.
Definitely, and I for one
absolutely always enjoy getting your feedback.
Yes, definitely, most definitely. And I, for one, am going to make a more conscious effort to try and cue into those musical interludes that happen with Doctor Who, so that I can be a little more knowledgeable and comment on them occasionally, because we're not long enough of a podcast yet. He goes on writing, thanks, Sean, for the minor problem joke regarding the podcast of Rassilon's reference to the harp. And I have to be honest, when he tweeted this earlier today, and I had to verify, it was like, I remember making a joke about the harp of Rassilon, but I don't remember what it was now. And it wasn't until he refreshed my memory that he says, oh, you said that the harp was just a minor problem. And then I was like, oh, my bad pun, yes.
But again, somebody that probably appreciated it more than Keith and I.
So I did.
He probably laughed where we groaned.
I did tweet back and told him that, Phil, I really appreciate that that you enjoyed it, because sometimes my humor can come across a little flat. That's right, I went there.
And sometimes a little underappreciated with us.
Side note, I forgot to record the issue of doctorates, also called terminal degrees, because you finish, don't, or die, in my humble opinion. That's awesome. Interesting that even the American Medical Association was trying to push Congress last year or so to keep the term only for medical doctors, even though doctorates in medicine are fairly recent, and in other disciplines hundreds of years old, going back to the medieval university, where there was a license to teach. And see, here's a website which we will post on the show notes for more info on degrees. I got the nickname Dr. Phil, 2 L's, from many podcasts I emailed into, the first being the IndieCast, and later Trevor Genich and Tony Gakilian, Gallican, I'm murdering these names, I apologize, on the DWO WhoCast a while back. So Trevor and Tony. Just embraced it because of the fun of it, but never to flaunt such things. What a doctorate in music details is achieving a bachelor's and master's, first rigorous editions and entrance exams, then 2 years of coursework, 4 recitals, comprehensive exams in music theory, history, and your particular area, double bass and viola da gamba for me. Then your doctoral committee has to approve your topic, in which I did a 2-hour lecture recital accompanied by a major document, dissertation. Mine was about 130 pages or so, shorter than if you only did the paper, to do a lecture recital and a defense, in voice of Dr. Claw. Oh, that'd be Gadget. Right? That's where he was going with that?
I think
So.
I can't think of any other Dr. Claw.
Okay. In most fields aside from medicine is the defense, which, for me, was a 3-hour interrogation and grilling on your major project, mine being Elizabethan ballad. Where do I go here? Mine being on Elizabethan ballad tunes, pop tunes, and instrumental music written for violas, low art and high art.
Wow.
I think you've lost most of us a little way back here.
That gives me a headache just thinking about all that work.
What I didn't learn until the defense is that the moment you pass the defense, you are a doctor, not the moment you get the diploma. This works for most PhDs. Mine is a DM, Doctor of Music, a performance degree. Enough on that. Keep up with the great show, gentlemen. Most sincerely yours, Philip. Oh, wait. Okay, I don't know that. Once again, Dr. Phil, I got to say I am suitably impressed by your credentials and the efforts it took to get to them. I know you don't want to flaunt them, but
I don't.
That's a lot of work, man.
People may not want to flaunt it, but I think it's a great achievement that a lot of people don't recognize as much as they should.
Yeah.
Especially when it's, I mean, everyone sees doctors, but then those ones that are outside of the medical field kind of get lost. And the fact that somebody went that far to get a doctorate in their field, just considering I never actually went to college, confounds my mind that they did all of that work, and I don't think I could have done it.
I'm going to say phooey on Congress for trying to push through such a ridiculous piece of legislation. Fix a real problem, guys. Don't take people's doctorates away from
Isn't
them.
our economy in shambles? Isn't there something more you can focus on?
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's enough of our political commentary for the evening.
Let's point out that Dr. Phil, and as I was reading here, and now Sean's computer crashed on me, so I can't get back here, was Dr. Lou also joins him on that podcast. So it sounds like a combination of both. Now, the episodes that I've only started listening to within the last, since we've had been in contact with him, so the last 6 months, I've only heard Dr. Phil most of these podcasts. But the podcast is actually called Doctor Who Adventures in Time, Space, and Music. And it's a very informative podcast. And I'll tell you what I enjoy about it the most is the fact that he does take the focus and put it on music a lot of times.
Yeah.
He'll review the episodes and he'll talk about events and things and the plot and things that happen. But he'll also go as far as to talk about the different styles of music and the instruments that are being played in there. And it's really entertaining. And I come from a very minor musical background. I minored in music in college for a while. But I by no means have
What was her name?
no knowledge or expertise in music at all. But I still, coming from it from such a minor background in it, I totally enjoy it. And I think anybody that listens to it can get a lot out of it. Despite the fact that he goes into a lot of the technical aspects, it's a really fun podcast, and I enjoy it because it's different than a lot of podcasts that are out there doing Doctor Who.
Just as a side note, because we don't have enough of those yet, we got a little bit of a late start tonight recording because I was finishing up some homework, not for my doctorate. I'm just going back because I'd like to get a diploma. It's a college diploma, but And as background music, I was listening to a movie-themed playlist that I put together, not on my iPod. And Glenn made the comment that, what are you listening to? And it was like, well, it was, some Terminator, some Jurassic Park, some...
He made the comment that, you're listening to Jurassic Park.
Yeah. And then I was focused on the test, but I overheard you guys saying something about the difference between classical music and soundtrack music and whatnot. And that it just... Orchestral. It brought a side note to my head that I wanted to ask about. Do you think, in general, science fiction fans are maybe more prone to listen to orchestral or classical music than maybe your average Joe Blow on the street? Do you think? I mean, is that?
It's possible.
Is that one of those things that ties
how many
into
of the iconic scores there are that are orchestral?
Star
Wars theme.
Exactly. I mean, does that tie into nerd status? Because you enjoy this kind of stuff, you also enjoy the music from it. And all of a sudden that struck me, and I wonder now. And maybe Dr. Phil has more information on that he can send our way. But that for whatever reason just stuck in there, and I thought I got to make a note to ask these guys that.
I think it'd be a great study for a doctorate.
There you go.
If I go back for music, I'll throw that.
I don't know.
There.
I'm a huge sci-fi fan, but I wouldn't consider myself a classical music fan. I occasionally like to listen to classical music. I do like
but not even necessarily
orchestral music.
But you listen to soundtracks. You
I
listen
do.
to Star Wars. You listen.
But it has to be something that I'm familiar enough with that I can listen to it several times
and almost have the scene play in your head.
Yeah, kind of, because it lends to my enjoyment of the film. The music recalls things about the movie or the TV series as I listen to it. And I think that's why I enjoy it more than just appreciating the music structure itself. So,
just on that aspect alone, I think more quote-unquote nerds would be like that, where Mr. Jock across the street, that music and that was awesome. I love this song by blah, blah, blah. Like the actual, not the score, the soundtrack.
Yeah.
Now that we've offended nerds and jocks, maybe we can move on. And of course,
I say that being a giant nerd.
Yeah, well,
I'm proud to admit it.
I'm proud to admit that I'm a nerd, and I want anybody who's listening to know that any time that I mention nerd, in no way, shape, or form am I being derogatory. I will wear that. I'm a Trekkie, and I will wear that proudly. I'm a Whovian. I'm a Galactian, whatever all these other ones are.
Nerd, geek, dork.
See, I'm not a nerd. Nerd always implied to me that I had some sort of expertise in intelligence, and I don't. I'm just a geek.
I like to think I have some expertise in something.
Okay. So
and some intelligence.
If you're going to get technical, I'm a nerd without the math.
There you go. If it wasn't for the math and the science and the literature and the then I probably would have been.
See, I was always really good at math. I just didn't pursue it.
You minored in music?
I did minor in music for a time. And I was chasing a girl, so there
it comes out. Who called it?
Should we move on to
Chrissy did.
Shall we move on to our review of The Pirate Planet?
The Pirate Planets. the Doctor and Romana arrive on the planet Zanuck, looking for the second segment of the key to time. Although priceless gems are scattered on the streets, and the night sky changes with the dawn of each new prosperous age, the townsfolk live in fear. For in a fortress overlooking the city, the terrifying... Sorry.
Come on!
The terrifying pirate captain is now in control of the most destructive force in the galaxy. Da-na-na! I laugh at the pirate captain, but I did enjoy this story.
Yeah, okay. Because I tell you what, if you had said, well, I didn't like this, I was going to call you out on some shenanigans that were happening while we were trying to watch this story, while you and Sarah were kind of chatting and giggling back and forth, and I was afraid that it was because you didn't like the episode. And she's back here showing, what are you talking about?
She had bug bites. I was helping her relieve the itching with some ointment.
If it was because of something else, I don't have
I'm pretty sure Keith was sucking the venom out is what was going on.
It wasn't like that at all.
Anyway, no, I'm glad to hear that you enjoyed
my
it.
least favorite part of the story was the pirate captain because he was so over the top.
But
if he would have played it a bit more subtly,
worked so
I think
well for this episode though, because it was almost like he was a joke. The joke of it is the fact that he was he was a puppet of this queen who had set herself up, and that's what it. When I first saw this episode, I thought the same thing. I thought, oh, this is just... this guy's chewing scenery. This guy is going way over the top with this character that really, doesn't need to be done. And then when it sets up to the fact that they reveal that... What's the gal's name that's the queen? I can't even remember.
Xanthia?
Is it Xanthia? No.
Zaxia?
Whoever it was. We're so bad with names here. I've even got the names here in front of me, but it doesn't jump out at me. But when it reveals
that, she's referred to as the nurse.
The nurse. Well, there you go. The nurse who ends up. Well, she was the nurse through the majority of the story. That's all they
three
set
of
her
the
up
episodes.
as.
Yeah.
Until you find out that the nurse is basically been engineering this and puppeteering this for her own prolonged life in order to reign longer and become. It makes sense. It works.
It does
that's what I like about that.
In the fourth episode of the story.
Yeah. So it's necessary that he does that.
It was just getting to that. I think going back and rewatching it.
And I think maybe I went there the first time.
If I were to go back and rewatch it, I wouldn't have as much of a problem with him as I did the first time.
I'm going to go one step further and say that it's beyond cool. It's genius. Because you have this character who is blustery and over the top and killing people at random and controls through fear, and then we find out that he's a puppet. But before the puppetry, we find out that he's a genius.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the other thing that I like about that.
Once they reveal the fact that he's genius,
he's devised.
He's not just a one-note character.
Right.
He's not just the blustery guy. He is the most. I forget the term that they used, but the most celebrated or best temporal engineer, not temporal,
whatever that he was using
physical engineer
to keep the planets
of his age, because of he reconstructed his ship. I kind of got the impression that he was probably responsible for a large portion of his own body augmentation after the crash.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's the impression I get as well.
Then the time dams and the planetary bodies and creating this dude created a planet that can jump through hyperspace and swallow other planets. That's cool.
Yeah, that is very cool.
Absolutely.
That entitles you to a few personality quirks. If you want to have a robotic parrot that kills people, okay, man, that's your thing.
I actually kind of like the parrot. I wish it had more of a parrot look to it, but I like the idea.
It was almost rather hawkish, wasn't it?
It looked like a square.
Well,
it wasn't until you didn't get a side angle of it, and when it's chasing K9, that's when it really looks like a bird.
The thing is, we're we're dealing with an era where we saw things like the Merca and whatever that thing was in
the Merca wasn't.
Yeah, but this is what I'm saying is we're dealing with effects from back then and in what budget they have. And I've always thought this. I've always thought it more of a hawk than a parrot. I think the idea is that because he's a pirate, he has a parrot. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the cleverness of it. But I've always likened it to, because it's this vicious bird robot that, that kills. It really is more like a parrot, or no, more than like a hawk than a parrot. So it's excusable that it looks more hawkish.
Yeah.
I still didn't think there for a while. I didn't know it was a bird.
Very Douglas Adams is what it
does.
looks and feels. This whole episode looks and
you
feels
mentioned
Douglas
several
Adams.
times that there were lines of dialogue
There
and
absolutely
references when. I don't know if they were technically references or not, but in retrospect, they are retrospect.
They are in retrospect, and I think what they are essentially is they
bleed over.
It's reusing is what he's doing,
Yeah.
because from my understanding, he was working on this at the time that he sold the radio play to the BBC. So what happens is he's got these two pieces. He's got Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and he's got this Doctor Who episode that he's story that he's working on. And I'm sure that he was probably working on them at the same time. And a lot of the radio play may not make it, so we put elements of that we liked in this.
We'll take some
here.
ideas that I
and
like.
Exactly, and there wasn't a lot,
Which
but there
was
was
the
enough
planet?
to be when you go back and you go. Let me look, because it's Bandragonus 5. Which is Sandragonus 5 in the
I thought you said it was the
Hitchhiker's
same
Guide.
when we watched it.
No, it's just one letter different, because Sandragonus 5 is where the Pan-Galactic Gargle Blaster originates.
I was just about
from
to ask
in Hitchhiker's Guide.
If it was going to be the same.
No,
does that mean they exist in the same universe?
Had that been the case, yeah, that would have been
awesome.
Yeah, that absolutely would have been awesome.
Isn't it possible that they are sister solar systems?
But yeah, absolutely. They could be in sister planets within the same solar system.
But you think it'd be Sandragonus?
Well, if they were sister planets in the same solar system, it'd be 5 and 4 or 5 and 6 or something.
No, because Sandragonus 4 implies that it could be a moon. I mean, it's not, because they are planets. But you say Sandragonus 1, 2, 3, and 4 because they are part of the same system, but they're joined to another body.
In a lot of sci-fi, they name the sun and name the planets based off the sun. 1, 2, 3, 4.
The Endor moon is the fourth moon of Endor in Star Wars. In Return of the Jedi.
But these are planets.
Well, that's true. but that's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying.
They've numbered those as well. But you're right. They're planets.
And a lot of sci-fi, they do that.
Right.
Pandora is a moon of whatever planetary cluster they were in Avatar.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
But at any rate,
the other one,
how cool would it be?
Let me point out the Douglas Adams, because I catch these and I can't quote them without looking. But one was the Doctor's line when they're on that people mover. I don't remember what it's called.
The electric walkway.
Yeah,
I did like that. I thought that was really neat.
And he says, standing around all day looking tough must be very wearing on the nerves. That's an exact line that is used in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and that's when Ford Prefix is talking about a Vorgon, talking to a Vorgon guard. So, I mean, it's essentially the same reference and delivered almost the same way. And I love the fact that was another crossover. And then, of course, the classic line that everybody recognizes from Hitchhiker's Guide, and that's on the cover of the guide, is Don't panic. And the Doctor actually says that to, who's the guy he's tied up with? The guy that comes with him starts with a B. I don't remember his name. But,
Ballatin.
Yeah,
the rather handsome young fellow.
Yeah.
With his wavy hair.
So he actually says, "Don't panic" to Ballatin, and I keyed in that right away. I was like, yeah.
So now, are we happier thinking that this is set in the same universe as? I'm just curious.
I like it because I love them equally.
Well, is it more equally plausible that the Doctor is just very well read on his Douglas Adams?
Well,
and so he's been
The
waiting.
Doctor is a fan of Hitchhiker's Guide.
He's been waiting for the opportunity to spring these lines of dialogue on somebody, and he just happened to get two in the same day. He was all over it.
That could be. Or I like to believe that Ford Prefect from the Hitchhiker's Guide was at some time hitchhiking and ended up here and heard the Doctor say those lines.
Ooh.
And so he in turn utilized those later.
Now
and
that is really stretching
may have
the
been
retcon,
part of the reason that
but
Don't Panic was inscribed on the Hitchhiker's Guide.
What if Ford,
I found another.
What if Ford Prefect was a companion?
Oh, that would be so cool! Oh, that would be a Glenn Bartlett wet dream right there. I'm
You
sorry.
wouldn't rather
that
have
would just
Arthur
be
Dent?
Awesome. Well, Arthur'd be great too, but no, Ford Prefect is my
would-
favorite character.
He would
He's
be
a
all over.
fantastic character.
Only second to him is Slarty Bartfest. So
Stephen Moffat, get on it.
back to the references. Qualactocin? Qualaxitin? Qualactin, mentioned as the only source for Ulion other than Brantagonist 5 is also the only source for another pan-galactic gargle blaster ingredient.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's right. That's
Thank you, Wikipedia.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, we've just now established with this.
That's right. They do. It does create.
They do coexist.
Universe.
All right, so that means it's perfectly plausible for Ford Prefect to show up.
And I want to see a Vogon. I want to see the Doctor go up against Vogons.
Absolutely.
Surely Disney's got some of those costumes left over from.
Surely Disney still holds the rights to some of that as well. I mean, might be kind of tough to cross those
we've
off.
got K9 on Disney Channel.
Hey, that's right. Oh,
there's an end. There's an end.
But of course, that's British Disney Channel, not American. I don't know if those how much those cross over.
It's all conglomerate.
Douglas Adams writing aside, I do like this, and it feels very Douglas Adams, even though I have also read that this story was much more involved and was more difficult to translate to television. And in fact, from what I understand, the script editor, who was Anthony Reed at the time, actually had to kind of take this story and pare it down a bit to make it more simplistic. Because I mean, really, it's quite an ingenious idea. One big giant planet that goes around
eating other
planets and then keeping them in a certain stasis so they still can exist. I mean that's Douglas Adams right there, written all over it.
This is how they should have done Galactica.
Yeah, there you go. But in order, the way to bring it down to more of a television level, I think that Douglas
Within
probably
the budget,
got edited quite a bit. But it's such an enjoyable story. It's a lot of fun. It's got its problems. One of which is the lacking of population to me when they first arrive.
Hooray!
What they believe,
the same 7 people.
But again, it's done in a way that it's very Douglas Adams humor. So I still buy that and like that, but it doesn't put you in the story. The seriousness of the story right away when they're doing that. It sounds very Monty Python at that point.
Yeah.
So, but it has its slight flaws. What's the name of the group that has the psychic powers?
The Mintiads.
The Mintiads is a great concept. The fact that these guys with psychic powers that walk around and are actually absorbing large amounts of it every time that a planet is eaten. It's a fantastic premise, but comes across in the episode as kind of flaky and weird, and that was one of my other least.
I think it's how they
parts of it
portrayed the Mintiad.
I think so.
Kind of. They reminded me of something, but I couldn't put my finger on it.
Well, it's almost like monks.
That's the idea they're going after, but it almost directly.
But it falls down.
They came out of something else.
To me, they should have been a little more monk-ish. That should have been a little more esoteric or a little more religious-like, I think, and it almost falls down and doesn't go far enough there. But
where the episode really shines, at least for me, is the fact that this is a very heavy canine episode. And this is my first heavy canine episode.
Yeah, Ribos didn't have much of it, so
yeah,
you got a lot of canine.
This is my first.
You get some action from canine, chasing down the
canine.
bird and actually
awesome.
killing it.
Or
destroying it. As much as you can kill a robot bird.
And then him bringing it to his
master.
Yeah, that was so it deepened my appreciation for canine even more.
It's fine.
Actually,
okay, you've had this unhealthy
this
obsession
justified
with him. Yes, it actually goes to a point to justify your obsession with canine. Because before this, the little limited amount of canine that you got, for as infatuated with the dog as you were, that just was not working for me.
Yeah.
But this goes a little further to kind of
best companion
justify
ever, hands down.
Well, and this one
can't
really.
Wait till you see Invisible Enemy. That might give you a whole other take.
This one really is the ultimate canine episode, because you get all of the great stuff. You get witty banter with the Doctor. Mm-hmm. You get him. I mean, he flies an air car. You get a great battle sequence where he shoots down the dog. Mm-hmm. He's constant, the hawk. Pardon me. He's constantly roaming somewhere. And then
he's off and off on his own.
Well, and you get the typical canine conventions of he used up all the juice. That happens a lot. Canine gets powered down and is kind of stranded at some point. And so all of the typical conventions with K9 are there for you. It doesn't matter what you like, what you don't like. It was all there in this episode, and here it is. I mean, just kind of laid out.
I have to say that my least favorite part of it was when he ran out of juice. That was kind of sad.
But
K9, no.
But even K9, as cool as he is, knew, hey, there's a power
Yeah,
cable.
he
right
recognizes
here.
the power cable as he's,
hey,
his last
plug
words
me
are,
in.
"Hey, there's a power cable behind you."
Plug me in.
I always thought K9 should come with an extension cable. Like, just there should be a compartment somewhere.
That's what his tail should be.
It should be his tail.
That's an antenna.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
there should be a compartment somewhere that opens up and it's just got a little.
But does he really
and
need
he can
an antenna
run.
when he has satellite dishes for ears?
Maybe one's transmission, one's receiving.
One ear piece.
No, this is for stereoscopics.
Oh.
I made a note of this because I wanted to bring it up on the actual BBC Doctor Who website, the official Doctor Who website. The analysis from Doctor Who: The Television Companion, which they have listed there, mentions the ideas that are in this episode, and there was a ton of them. Because we've got incredible abundance of mind-blowing concepts vying for your attention.
Yeah.
Here we're presented with engines capable of moving a planet across space via some sort of interstitial vortex, which I mentioned to you as a kid. Just the concept of that blew my mind. Then it's a vampire planet on top of that.
Yeah.
It's not just enough we're going to move
Because
the planet. It's going to suck all the life out of this other planet.
And the nice thing that fits with that is the fact that it still stays with the pirate theme, because we're plundering these planets by eating them, and then we're taking and providing the riches and wealth for the citizens of the planet. So we're taking the booty and we're sharing it with the essentially crew members of the ship.
Yeah.
So that was neat.
The only thing missing was the bridge up there. They needed a Jolly Roger. That was really the only thing that wasn't present as far as the
I
the
think
pirate
that might have
allegory goes.
got it. That would have gone just far enough to make it too kitschy, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
What, the robotic bird?
The
was it?
robotic bird.
Well, because it didn't look like a parrot.
That's true.
We also had
speaking of the planet, real quick. This aired in '78, or
yeah.
no, that's the whole key to started in '78. So
This episode would have
way,
been 78.
it justifies my
It's
point. I want it. It almost feels like they saw Star Wars and said, "Let's take it one step further and have this planet or this essential giant planet with its own gravitational force, like the Death Star would, eat other planets."
Instead of destroying them.
Instead of destroying them, it
and
consumes
preserves
them. Yeah, it's like they just took it one step further.
Yeah, it's a genius idea. Also, we get time dams. We get cybernetic control systems. We get living projections of matter.
Yeah.
We get telepaths. We get flying cars. And anti-inertia travel tubes.
That's what it was.
That's what they're called.
That's what the People Mover was called.
I think it was a linear induction motor that he mentioned at some point, but maybe
You're
not.
right. Maybe it uses linear induction.
But that's ordinarily, if you get a script that's got all of that going on in it, it would be one of those, wow, you had some great ideas, but there was too much going on. But I got to go back to Douglas Adams' writing. He makes it all work.
He does, but again, I think that part of that, I think you have to, as much as I love Douglas Adams, I think you have to give credit to the script editor who was able to pare a lot of this down to make it work
Well,
for this.
and
that's
the
true.
director
But
and
yes,
the crew
agreed.
for making these ideas.
If somebody's going to be able
work,
to
too.
make those ideas, come up with those ideas, and put them all into one concept and story, it's Douglas Adams. Because if you read any of his works that he's done, especially the Hitchhiker series, now, granted, it was radio play first, but any incarnation of that, there is so much going on, and that's what's happening in this episode. It's the same thing. That's why this feels so Douglas Adams.
Yeah.
I think even, as you reminded me, City of Death was written by Douglas Adams as well.
Yes.
I think City of Death, on maybe a much lower level, still does this.
Yes.
And that's what I enjoy about it as well. So.
And I really like the fact that the stuff about Newton.
Yeah.
Where the doctor's talking about Newton, and he says he dropped the apple on him.
He had to help him.
and then had to explain
I was there
gravity
when he
to him.
invented gravity. Well, actually, kind of nudged him along.
What happened?
Actually, I dropped the apple on his head.
I was
actually, I had to
I was in
explain
the
it to him afterwards.
I was in the tree chucking apples. What'd he say? He said, "Get out of my tree." That's the other thing. The
And
dialogue
that
in
was
this.
That's kind of what I come to expect from Tom Baker as the Doctor, is those witty, short one-liners that carries over to Tennant and carries over to Matt Smith.
I think more so Matt Smith has those quirky one-liners.
And that's one of my favorite things about
Tennant
Tom
had
Baker.
those moments, but I think
Yeah.
Matt Smith has them almost as much now as Tom Baker.
Well, and with The Impossible Astronaut, he has those moments and takes them one step further, and we show you those moments.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
This isn't what it looks like. Briefly, time dams. What a just again mind-blowing concept that we can set this up and prolong the very last visage of your life, microsecond by microsecond by microsecond, and drag that out in order to drain that life force off. This was a concept that I remember as many times as I've seen this episode. I want them to come back and revisit.
Yeah,
I know the doctor has said it doesn't work, but I want there to be. I want somebody, I don't know, maybe Davros, somebody diabolical enough to come up with a way to attempt to make it work. Just because I think it's such a
cool idea.
It's such a cool idea, and it's never been touched on again.
Yeah, that's true.
Which I think is unfortunate. The what did they call him? The people mover, the linear induction hallway. You laughed. Keith laughed so hard when old dude took off running.
And just, I couldn't go anywhere.
Just pantomiming. I'm running down this hallway, but come on, doctor, and not so much.
He overacted it a little bit,
maybe a bit.
and the green screen technology just wasn't quite there enough to completely sell it.
I don't think there was any.
Green screen was just fine.
But then to establish this hallway. And again, this is a very Douglas Adams thing. We're going to establish this hallway, and it's just kind of a cool, kitschy little throwaway bit of technology. But then to come back and dispatch a couple of cards at the end of
by turning it up.
Yeah, no, pretty much.
Did anybody feel that maybe that was a little out of character? Because I don't know. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say whatever force that those guards were moved along that hallway, when they got to the abrupt stop at the end. Bare minimum broken bones.
Well, sure.
Possibly pulverized internal organs.
But it's not that the doctor is not a violent man. The doctor only goes as far as necessary to, with the exception of a few times, only goes as far as necessary in order to impede the pursuer, or in that situation, that's probably as far as you
don't think he could have just turned it off?
Well,
and they would have had to run all the way down.
They would have
that.
Still had to. They'd still been pursuing. And
but they had such a.
But they wouldn't have gotten.
This way, if you break some bones, they're not getting back up.
That's true. They wouldn't have gotten anywhere.
Oh, that's right. If it was off, they wouldn't have ever got anywhere. You're right.
Nice.
So, but then they were in the tube, or did they just get out of the tube?
No, they were still in the.
Ramon and the doctor were out.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I was trying to remember.
Because they walked around the corner, and that's where the control panel was.
Right.
And
I don't know.
Maybe it was easier just to speed it up and turn it off.
It was
quicker.
It was.
I'm not coming down on it.
Well,
and it was a great laugh, and I'm not coming down on it for that matter because I love the bit. I'm totally okay with it. I just wanted to know if anybody else thought,
No,
okay,
absolutely love it.
Okay, then we're good there.
I know this. It kind of gets explained by the end, and when I think about it more, it makes more sense. But the fact that the planet is the key,
which Chrissy called.
Which Chrissy did call.
Like I don't know.
Never seen this.
5 minutes into this, she's like, "I'm calling it now. Califrax is the segment of the key to time." And I was a little heartbroken when I read the tweet. I was like, "Aw." And then we started laughing, and you were like, "What?" It's like, "We'll explain later," because we couldn't come out and say, "Well, Chrissy just guessed it."
But what would have happened if they had 200 years in the past? What if they had landed on the planet 200 years in the past? How would they have gotten the key? If the entire planet is the key.
So what you're saying is it was a fortunate.
It was a
fortunate event that they came to this point in time to.
It wasn't because they were trying to. The TARDIS landed them where they needed to be, but not where they were trying to go. But I can also retcon. It kind of falls apart right after watching it. I was like, well, what would have happened then? But now sitting down thinking about it a little bit more, the detector that they plug into the TARDIS console I can see saying, well, you can't go back at this point. You have to be at this point.
Don't you think the TARDIS itself may have made that determination? Since we've made such a big deal about the TARDIS takes the Doctor not where he wants to go, but where he's needed.
Needed, yeah.
The tracer may have been going, there it is, and the TARDIS is like, not yet, wait for it.
Yeah.
Okay, now.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. The TARDIS interpreting the data from the tracer, saying, it's a giant planet. There's no way we're going to be able to get this as this way. We got to get it small.
It does kind of bring up some interesting moral implications. If they had not arrived when they did, if it still had a full population and everything, and they realized the entire planet is the segment, do we just evaporate it, or do we order mass evacuations? Who listens to you? I mean, you couldn't even get anybody to answer him on Zanuck.
Would the key be the size of the planet, or would it shrink down to small?
But it would shrink
once
down
converted,
to the size.
it shrinks down
it
to.
Would shrink down to its. Here's the thing, though, is that the Doctor.
Granted, we never saw it shrink down.
You never have to say, well, what would have the implications been, because the Doctor never weighs the implications until the moment's put in front of him. So it's not fair to say what are the implications, because you don't know what the Doctor would have had to have done in that situation, or what he would have done. I'd like to think that he would have stopped right there and said, okay, we're done. I can't, in good conscience, destroy a planet in order to convert it back to a key in order to fulfill the White Guardian's request to get all of the key, all the pieces of key at time.
But would he have gone so far?
But he wasn't presented with that situation, so it wasn't necessary.
To speculate, as nerds want to do, would he have still evacuated the planet, taken his time, evacuated everybody safely, found them a new planet, so that the Black Guardian doesn't come along, or the Black Guardian's people don't come along and say, oh, well, let's just shrink it, and not care about the people on it,
maybe so.
in order to save those people's lives? Would he have gone through that process?
Would have made for a much longer episode.
That is true. Or a lot shorter.
Does it factor in at all? Does anybody feel like maybe this episode should have come a little bit later in the season? Just from the standpoint that, well, just now that we've established, because the White Guardian tells him they can be any size, any shape, and so we get a lump of rock in the first one. That's not all that inspired. I mean, that's kind of same size, same shape, same probably weight almost. But now all of a sudden it's a planet. Was that done, do you think, all of a sudden to just blow our minds and go, holy crap, look at how big this thing could get? Or should that have been a revelation that maybe a little bit later on was like, wow.
Yeah. I mean, in all reality, Douglas Adams wrote this script without it being part of the Key of Time.
That's true.
That the planet was, as the key was thrown in there later, realizing that, well, the blow your mind moment is the fact that the key is the planet, and the convenience of it is now it's small enough to convert back to the key. So,
in my mind,
but yes,
it adds,
I see where you're going with that. And
having only seen these two, it adds to the fact for me that if they keep staying small or gradually get bigger, I would expect, okay, the next episode is going to be bigger. Next episode, I have no idea what size the key is going to be. So it could be anything.
That's true. It does put it in that perspective.
It adds the variable.
It keeps the new viewer guessing.
Okay, good.
What could be next, yeah.
Which I think is a good move on their part.
So we're all in agreement that this is a tremendous step up from Rebos.
Rebos. Unfortunately, we stepped so high, and the next week we're going to fall so far.
Oh, I don't think so.
Oh, is this Demon's Run?
That's right. This is the Demon's Run of Key of Time. No, because we have some more episodes that get good.
That's true. Yeah, but that doesn't, just because the Doctor fell so far in the Demon's Run,
well, that's true.
Doesn't mean he can't climb back up.
That's true.
Any other thoughts on
I don't have anything
you guys were kind of going on and on and on about Romana.
Oh yeah, Romana. She is just a pretty lady. I like her.
I wasn't going on and on about her.
I like the development of this. I think that the Doctor and Romana's
I think their pairing is getting
growing.
Better. Yeah, I would agree.
And they're starting to gel a little better than they do in.
She's starting
Rebels.
to accept K9 a bit more.
She wasn't as
most important.
She realized the value of K9.
Exactly.
And no, I've always liked Mary Tam and wish she had been around longer than just this series. Shall we move on?
Let's move on.
Let's move on then.
We have some feedback regarding Night Terrors.
Night Terrors.
Chrissy sent us a first bit. and she says, here are my thoughts on Night Terrors. I usually don't do well with horror movies. If something is really scary, I just don't watch it. A lot of people are talking about how scary this episode was going to be. Well, I didn't want to miss an episode of Doctor Who, and since I was going to be driving home for the holiday weekend, I saved it for Sunday morning when I could watch it in the light of day. Well, it turns out that I didn't need to be so worried about how scary it was. Night Terrors is sufficiently creepy, but there were reasons for how creepy it was. Plus, the story was concise and put together really well. I also hope we get to hear from the Tenza again because they sound really interesting.
I agree.
Amy had some great moments in this episode too. I think she's really going to come into her own this half of the season, especially the next episode, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Chrissy, considering the
Considering
next
the
time.
preview, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I thought Rory had some great episodes in this, or great moments in this episode too.
And we'll talk about that when we review it, but I feel like it was some parts of this was again another step back for Rory. But I understand why, because this was aired out of order. Well, it was shot out of order. It aired in order that the way they finally intended, but it was not originally meant to be aired at the start of the season. So.
But thanks for your thoughts on that. You want to read
Absolutely.
Holly's?
I'll take. I seem like I always read Holly Mac, so that's quite all right. I enjoy reading them. Next one's from Holly Mac, or Holly from Wisconsin.
Not Glenn's wife.
That's right. Night Terrors feedback. Hey guys, loved your last podcast. Night Terrors was a good episode. At least no one really died in this episode, thank heavens. Keith was talking about last week.
Yeah, that's
the
true.
dolls were very creepy. Loved how the Doctor made the comment that he really needs to add wood setting to the sonic screwdriver. Loved the interactions with the Doctor that the Doctor had with George, and the "Tick-Tock Goes the Clock" song was very creepy. Agreed.
It almost had a Freddy Krueger
It
song
kind of did.
vibe
I thought
to
the
it.
same thing. That was really the only thing horror movie about this episode was that.
Well, I'm the dolls. We'll get into that in a second. Let's go and finish.
She goes on to say, looking forward to hearing your thoughts on this episode. Can't wait for next week. Holly from Wisconsin.
Hi, Holly. And Sean comes back from the bathroom.
I was getting
You
liquid
just called
refreshment.
him out.
Just called him out. Because I'm holding it in.
Well, let's talk
Anyways.
about this episode, Night Terrors.
This was a pretty good filler episode.
Yeah.
It really was. I liked it better than Curse of the Black Spot. I liked it better than the Rebel Flesh.
This is an episode. I want to jump in here because I think I'm going to expand on what you're saying. This is an episode that there are episodes that are within the continuing story thread, and then there are episodes which we call filler episodes. They're Monster
of the Week standalone.
This is really a Monster of the Week standalone filler episode that works and doesn't really even feel like a filler episode.
It doesn't.
Even though there's no link, with the exception of the one shot at the end. There is no link to the continual thread.
Which is, at this point, is this season's crack.
Right, absolutely.
And ironically,
There was a crack.
we wouldn't even been having this discussion back in the day because there was no, unless you
There
did
wasn't
an
over-
event like Key to Time,
Right.
there was no overarching
in
story.
In
It's-
classic Who, there was not. Key
Well,
of the Time
even going
and
back to
Trial of
David
the Time
Tennant's.
Lords are the only examples of that. Some people like in the Ace trilogy, but those weren't even really written to be continuing parts. That each one of them just happens to focus on Ace's.
Well, and-
Ace's character.
even up to season 5. I mean, I can't speak for season
Well-
4. I mean, it sets it up. We go off on these adventures. There are these big 2-part episodes that, by the end of the season,
Have tied
they
everything
tied
together.
in. But until you get to the very end of the season, they're all standalone stories.
There's been a small thread
A very small thread. Yeah.
through most of the series that goes from point A to point B, but it's
Season premiere to season
until
finale.
season 5. There was and 6 is even more so, but until
I guess-
season 5.
I guess my problem is I don't like the term filler.
It-
In a normal TV show, yes, there are
it's
filler
a
episodes.
perfect definition.
In Doctor Who, I don't.
Well, and I think we
I
only
don't buy
consider
that.
them filler episodes
It's
since series 5.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
because
I-
there
I-
is this over
Arcing. I like the term
overarching
one-off.
story. Yeah.
It's a one-off.
It's a
episode.
one-off. I don't want to discount Curse of the Black Spot because I really enjoyed that storytelling.
It was a more fun
it was a
episode.
fun episode. But this one, and maybe it's just because it didn't come off the heels of Day of the Moon, I didn't feel that. hurry up and get back to the plot,
Yeah,
which I did throughout
agreed.
Curse of the Black
Yeah,
Spot.
agreed.
Yeah, that is a good point.
Well, this one I liken more to The Doctor's Wife, which also is a standalone episode. There's
But
nothing that
it's
links it with the
standalone.
exception of the thing that Idris says to Rory about the only...
It's standalone, but the great thing about The Doctor's Wife is it builds on the history. This one doesn't build on the Doctor Who history.
But see, there's a lot of episodes that build on the history of Doctor Who. Doctor's Wife just does a lot of it.
It focuses on the
But
history.
I wouldn't consider that part of the...
It's not a part. No, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. That's why I can't compare the two. Is
Oh, I
because
see.
The Doctor's Wife fills so much and focuses so much on the Doctor's history and the Doctor's past and just the history of the show in general,
Yeah.
where this doesn't. It's almost more like the first half.
I guess
of,
what I mean from the point of being a standalone, where there's
With-
no
within the
there's no
story
mention
arc.
of
Yeah.
what's going
Yeah.
on throughout the rest of the series, with the exception of a few minor things. But
Yeah. The dolls, I think, would have been creepier if they were doll size. Them being human size, I understand the fact that they are humans
I see what you're
turned,
saying.
but I think they would have been creepier especially creepier, if they're turning humans into dolls and then they shrink down to doll size in addition to turning to wood.
Well, here's the idea though: is because we're in this doll
doll
house,
house.
the dolls
Okay.
have to be at
Actual
least proportionate to. But
The
the
doll
problem
to
I
the
have
house.
with that is that
They're just not
the
creepy then.
furniture and everything. Yeah, exactly. That's why they're done the way they are, to make them creepy. But the furniture and everything is pretty much in close proportional size to our occupants that are unwillingly put there.
Yeah.
The table's not. I mean, it's slightly bigger. Like the fruit was obviously bigger, but
The
that
fruit,
was,
the
that
plates,
was the plates. But these dolls are almost disproportionate to the fixtures and furnishings within this house too.
Yeah.
And I think they should have been a little more proportional to that to make it more believable they were dolls. But as Keith says, it takes away the creep factor because
So you're
dolls look
saying the
creepy.
dolls technically should have been even a little bit bigger than what they
I don't
were.
think
No, they
bigger. I
should've-
think they should have been smaller,
They should have been
proportional,
closer
but
to
still
human size.
larger than the humans, but smaller than they were because they almost seemed like oversized dolls in this dollhouse.
See, I guess going into this episode too, I had seen the pictures and the promos because we saw scenes from this episode.
all the way back to the beginning.
Yeah, and
the first trailer
we
got.
only saw the dolls alone, so you almost assume they're tight shots.
Yeah.
So I guess I went in expecting them to be small and was a little disappointed that they were big. It makes sense that they're big.
I mean, if you want to think about it, the people are only miniaturized, and they are becoming miniature dolls.
That's
because
true.
in
Yeah.
the perspective
It
of being
makes
outside
sense.
that cupboard, you
It
would be.
makes sense. It's just not as creepy as it could have been.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
I'm going to throw out a couple of things here. One, it's unfortunate that they changed the order.
I think, in my mind, it makes sense.
I agree with you. It makes total sense. But I kept waiting for Rory to make a comment once they realized what was going on. Wow, we just got miniaturized last week.
Oh.
And then, of course, I had to, well, wait, he wouldn't say that because at the time, obviously, this was filmed
But
differently.
he almost
I
doesn't
didn't
figure it out
mean
until the
that.
end, though.
Yeah, I thought it would have been funny,
I didn't.
though.
Yeah, it would have been.
It would have been a great
but
Rory
that would have been.
moment.
But see, that would have been one more Rory moment because we already get the.
Great,
oh no,
we've
we've died again.
Which is the other great moment.
which and it's great because he doesn't die.
Yeah, he doesn't.
Amy
but
gets turned into a
he
doll,
believes
but-
now. Okay, we've died again.
Which that opens up a whole new host of things when he says, "Oh, we've died again." Is he being facetious funny, or is he like cognitive of all of these deaths that he's had over the season? Which, wow, does that suck? I
That's
mean,
very possible.
does he remember them all?
Well, he remembers. He knows the fact that he died in.
Well, the crack.
Yeah, from the crack.
He's aware of that because he was there, and
He
then
talks- yeah.
suddenly he talks about being in Rome.
He talks about being an Autog.
ancient Rome.
So, does he remember? Well, obviously.
Well, he does remember those instances because the doctor and him have the conversation in The Impossible Astronaut about, or in Day of the Moon, where he's asking, "Do
remembers
you
being
remember
a-
that?" And he says, "No." And he says, "Are you lying?" He says, "Yeah, of course I am."
And so he
But it's
remembers
like a
no
door.
longer
He doesn't-
existing
yeah, exactly.
too from.
So I think that he
From-
also recalls. Of course, now that was all him
the-
dying in The Doctor's Wife was not. He never really died.
That's
That was
true.
all in Amy's
Right,
mind.
that was
So he
yeah.
wouldn't remember that.
Yeah.
He just remembers wandering around looking for Amy. So
He-
But would he remember dying I guess he didn't actually
He
die
didn't die.
in person.
That's just it. He hasn't died at all this
No,
season.
he really
we,
hasn't.
we always get the impression that he has, but he has not died.
But he gets put in mortal peril.
Yeah.
Somebody online tweeted, and I wish I could remember who so I could give him credit, but I read a tweet, and I didn't realize it was a review of the episode at first until I got just far enough into it and went, oh, wait, no, and I didn't want to read it because I hadn't watched it yet. But somebody tweeted, how come Rory's flashlight is powerful enough to put these brilliant lens flares into the camera, but doesn't actually light anything up? And I thought that's a very valid point, because this episode, I wish I'd gone back and looked at the director. This episode looked different than a lot of prior.
Really well shot.
It was really well shot.
The framing on some of these shots were brilliant.
Constant, like when he's walking down that hallway with the flashlight pointed at the camera, and you get that solid blue line all the way across, and it's not just a lens flare; it's a continuous all the way down the hallway. I thought that was very cool looking. They had me at hello when the TARDIS materializes, but it's the reflection in the pool of water as a material, and it was upside down. That was genius. That was the coolest shot almost ever.
Okay, so
just for as many times as we've seen the TARDIS land, it's. What can you do
so
with it to
different.
make it different?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do this.
So
Oh, man, I loved that.
this director is Richard Clark. He directed Gridlock. He directed The Lazarus Experiment. He directed The Doctor's Wife.
See, none of those stand out to me, besides maybe The Doctor's Wife, but even from
From a directing
perspective, no.
standpoint, no. But this one really stands out to me.
Well, and The Doctor's Wife is the one of that group that looks the most different, but I chalk that up more to
location,
production design, and putting Gaiman's vision out there, because it almost felt Tim Burton-ish with the way
especially
it was.
I would agree.
Yeah,
I would agree.
But this, like I said, this episode didn't look like anything else that we'd seen so far. Now, the dollhouse, genius concept that the little boy, anything that you're afraid of goes into the cupboard, and then all of a sudden we get zapped into the cupboard. But did anybody else pick up on that early? That they were in a dollhouse?
Well, only when we first see that, when the Doctor opens it up.
Yeah, and you see a dollhouse.
I didn't even when they talked about how when Roy says something about the metal pan, and she says, "Well, no, it's wood painted to look metal." I still didn't get it there. It wasn't until the Doctor actually, we get the big intense moment of, should we open it? Should we not? Should we open it? And he finally does. And there's really nothing ominous in there.
Yeah.
And he's trying to figure out what's going on here. And they show us
all
the
toys with the dollhouse.
They show
in the
us the dollhouse.
Yeah.
And
that was
our
when I
attention
got it.
That's when I got it too.
Okay.
Yeah, my attention was drawn to it.
I have to admit, I actually, as soon as she said it's a wooden pot painted to look copper, and he says that's dumb, I went, aha, I know where they are. And so I personally, I felt it was a little predictable. I still think it's a genius idea of having them wander around and explore this. But, I don't know, I thought it was...
Yeah, this was originally filmed to be episode 4, so it would have taken.
It would have taken the place of the Doctor's Wife. They just flipped them.
That makes sense. It's the same director and rotating directors. Do you want to mention the childhood nursery stories that the Doctor talks about?
We can't remember the one that he mentioned
the
about the Sontaran.
The Sontaran and the something or another.
He references when he's talking to George about the remembering fairy tales from his youth, and he brings up the Emperor Dalek's new clothes and Snow White and the Seven Keys to Doomsday. Of course, the Dalek Emperor Dalek's new clothes is obviously a reference to the Emperor's new clothes, and the fact that the Emperor Dalek is the head of all Daleks.
Yeah.
Which, for reasons we can't explain yet, because Keith hasn't seen those later episodes, that's actually kind of a funny joke on several different levels.
Yeah,
because
it
of how
does.
what that turns out to be.
Yeah, it does work well. And then, of course, Seven Keys of Doomsday being... And Sean and I hadn't realized this until we were looking at Wiki later, that it was the night... And I remembered this now after reading it, but the 1974 stage play, Seven Keys of Doomsday, which is... Some people consider canon, I don't. But we will visit the stage plays.
Is that going to come around? Is it off Broadway now? Or?
No, I don't think you can. I don't think you can even get copies of it to see. But there are scripts out there that I think we could dissect and talk about as well.
Yeah.
So.
I'd be down with that.
The other major thing I want to talk about in this episode is the Doctor's comments on the Sonic. He mentions as Chrissy mentioned, or was it Holly? I think it was Holly. I need to add a wood setting.
A wood setting.
But he completely retcons everything the sonic screwdriver does that you guys have problems with. He says it's a screwdriver, a sonic one, and more. That means he's modified his a sonic screwdriver to do more things.
I never. Wait a minute.
Well, one of you, I can't remember which one, has complained of, well, it's Sonic, it does some things it shouldn't do that sonic waves can do.
No, okay, I see what you're saying.
Totally makes sense.
We have commented that the screwdriver now does far above and beyond what it was originally set out to do.
But this completely explains that to me.
Well, I think it simply does. I think, though, I've always assumed that the sonic screwdriver has been upgraded throughout the years, especially since the new series came back. So,
I will begrudgingly allow that because I think you're right.
Yes.
It's impractical of me to think that it's the same sonic screwdriver, despite the different configurations and looks that he's been using all his time. I still go back to the fact that it's a crutch, and it's one that's used way too often.
It is a crutch,
from a plot standpoint. Now,
in
explaining
my
to me that, I incorporated a medical scanner into it, so now I can do this. Yeah, you're right. It's one part weapon, it's one part tricorder, it's one part this, it's one part that. It's like, I kind of miss the days when what it did was unscrew things.
Yeah.
Quite honestly.
Absolutely.
But I agree. Would you rather see the Doctor pull out a tricorder and a blaster and all sorts of different stuff from his tweed jacket when he doesn't carry as much as everybody else?
I kind of go back to the admiration I had for Peter Davison. When he lost the Sonic, it was like losing a family member. It was a big deal. But then, when David Tennant's comment, Kettle and String approach to the universe, that he had to figure...
the same episode.
Yeah, that he had to figure out another way around this stuff, because he didn't have that to rely on anymore. I think it kind of puts...
It adds depth and...
It puts it back on the Doctor.
More challenge for the Doctor, I agree.
Now...
And they do use it too much in the new series. But
well,
how they use it in the new series too much,
I'm
okay with now because of this line.
I'm not going to begrudge them the speed savings.
They don't have
between the sonic screwdriver and the sonic paper. Psychic paper, not sonic paper. Psychic paper. Between those two devices, we have managed to cut out a lot of exposition that in the old days was necessary to get us from point A to point B to point C. Now we can just move directly there.
A lot of times back in the day, made us question. Wait a minute. Actually, having the sonic screwdriver do more and have the psychic paper back in the day would have left a lot of unanswered questions, or it would have answered a lot of unanswered questions that we have nowadays, where we just kind of accepted some of the things that happened. The fact that the Doctor can just walk in and start, figuring things out without anybody questioning who he is or what he's doing there.
Right.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? The sonic paper does that now.
In today's
back in the day, or psychic. Yeah, I'm doing that. Back in the day, there was always those unanswered questions of, well, why are they trusting him? Why is he just able to walk in here and
which I think is partially
the
time
leave
period.
That more to his personality, but
there was personality, but it was also.
But Sean's right.
A reflection
cuts
of the
a lot
times.
of time down to. I mean, you've got 40 minute episodes, 45-minute episodes now.
Whereas they used to have
2 hours.
2 hours, yeah.
In some cases longer.
As we've discovered sometimes on accident.
Full props to Mark Gatiss for the scariest place in the world, a child's bedroom. that is one of those lines that will, I hope, echo throughout from this point forward, just because it's so evocative and meaningful, and boom, puts you right there. He set us up with that one line. We knew what we were getting into, and I loved it. George was a little wishy-washy. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but again, sufficiently explained.
Yeah.
Although,
did it call to mind to you guys the Fear Her episode a little bit?
A little bit. You know where it started? When we get this establishing
Mark
shot.
Mark Gatiss, by the way.
Was that Fear Her too?
Oh yeah, it was.
Mark, right. You've really redeemed yourself with this one. Let me tell you. When it opened, I you're gonna laugh. I had a little Paradise Towers fear going into it. because we're at this apartment complex and something's wrong. And then there's a little old lady answering the door. And it was like, whoa, are we going there?
That's wow.
Especially then when we get to the landlord.
That's kind of cool now.
Especially the landlord, because the landlord's just a disagreeable person. Yeah. He's such not a nice character. Although he shows up in the middle of the thing, and we kind of sort of hear half of the conversation, but not really, because the doctor's not paying attention to it. We're supposed to be focused on him. So then they drown the audio out so that we can go back to focusing on the doctor. But it almost felt like that didn't go anywhere. Like maybe there was more supposed to have been.
That lends more to the fact that the boy's more scared of him because he's only getting pieces of the conversation. Even though this guy's not an agreeable person, George is more afraid of him because he doesn't understand the situation.
That's why he puts him into the cupboard. Okay, I didn't make that connection.
I mean, the guy's bad. I mean, the guy's a mean guy, and could be a tad scary, but when you're not getting the full story of what's going on there, then it makes it even.
Okay, so then why did the old lady get sucked up?
Well, but she's the one that always walked by with the squeaky wheel thing, and she was the shadow that went by, and then that's why Rory and Amy end up in.
Well, that one made sense because they were in the lift because he was afraid of the lift.
And doesn't she say something that as they're walking by the window.
Rory says.
Yeah, Rory says.
Maybe we should let the monsters
the goblins
get the kid. Yeah, so then suddenly they're part of his fear as well. So yeah, that's why.
Okay.
There's a reason for everybody going in, and they set it up very nicely.
Yeah.
Why each of these.
Thank you for setting me straight on that. I take it back then. Yeah.
What did you guys think of the resolution of it? It seemed a bit easy, but it was still somewhat heartfelt for me.
Oh no, I absolutely
that's the only way it could end.
Yeah,
I mean, he has to face his fears.
It has to be because of the father. It's because of the father is.
That was the part I was wondering what your guys' thought was, because I totally agree that you have to face your fears.
I come at it watching this as a father.
Yeah, that's
and hoping that I would never ever put any doubts in my kids' minds as to how important they are and how. There's nothing more in the world or universe more important than they are to me, and that I would never send them away regardless of any problems that I was having. And I think that reassurance was necessary, and absolutely. I thought it was fine. Again, coming from a father's perspective, but I loved that. That was a great, heartwarming fairy tale ending for me.
When he first started to explain it to him, it felt a little cheesy, but then when it actually happened, it didn't at all to me.
Sarah brought up an interesting point after the episode that with George being a Tenza, is this one of those that could we ever potentially see their true form or not?
I don't think we would.
I
think it'd be like a spore.
I mean, well, I don't think we would from the standpoint that I don't think they need to revisit it, but I don't think
in possibility could we?
Well, and I agree. Was it Holly that talked about how she'd like them to revisit the Tenza again, and
which they almost set this up as a follow-up. Well, I'll be back when puberty hits.
I think that
it was a joke.
They could have set it up. Yeah, that could be used as a springboard, but it really is a throwaway line.
Yeah, it's
because
he
says, the dad still has some doubt about
some fear,
whether there's going to be issues, and the doctor's trying to reassure him this. Well, maybe I'll come back and check when he hits the puberty.
And thank goodness that the child's problem was with dad and not mom.
Yeah. No, I would agree.
We were in the cupboard for a while.
Well, it seems to me that mom was the grounding point for the kid, because the mom was the one that always seemed to be the one to come in and take care of the situation. She is the first one, and it says, "What do we do with the fear? We put it in the cupboard and lock it away."
Yeah.
So, I agree.
And she was obviously, almost more so than the dad wanted the child. That she was so desperate to have one, and we get all that from his perspective,
right?
Which it's a well written balancing act that works on. Another really great Rory moment, which Paradise Towers, when he even references, well, the doctor's off in EastEnders land.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
When he was talking about the TARDIS screwed up, they brought him here. The doctor's probably off in EastEnders land, and we're in the 1700s or something like that. And I thought, that was serendipity. We were talking about how EastEnders couldn't coexist because it was, and that totally made it just like almost laughable.
Yeah.
That Dimensions in Time is set in EastEnders. And I thought that was, what a great line.
One more nail in the coffin for the continuity of that special.
I thought it in and of itself was a nail in the coffin for that special.
Well, it is, but he's saying one more nail in the
It
coffin.
was the coffin.
That might have been the final nail in the coffin.
How many more nails do you need?
You could torch it. I hear George Lucas is planning on retconning the holiday special. So
I would really be interested to see how that would work.
no, you wouldn't.
Only thing that I wanted to see on the Blu-ray special editions was the
Holiday special. It should be an Easter egg. That's what it should be.
Maybe it will
should
be.
It won't.
But instead, we're going to have Vader talking during the big important bit.
Yeah.
Anyway, anything else about Night Terrors?
I don't think so. We need to move along because we're getting long-winded here. So
time to call it a night.
I think it is. Sean, what do we got coming up next week?
Next week, we continue the quest for the Key to Time. Join us for Friday Night Who. That's midnight Central Standard Time on Friday, which technically, yes, we know it's Saturday morning, but Saturday morning Who just doesn't have the same ring to it.
I apologize to anybody that didn't stop listening to the cast that hadn't seen this because we didn't sound the spoiler warning.
Oh, we didn't.
Can we go back and insert one?
I think people are. I think our listeners are clever enough to know when we're getting ready to talk about.
It's funny. I almost thought about saying that we and spoilers ahead, but you had made the mention once it's aired, it's fair game. So.
Well, it is for us, and I think that our listeners are smart enough, and those that listen
and
say they're in Australia or somewhere else that doesn't get it right away, they're smart enough to know when we're getting ready to review an episode.
And that's also why we put the feedback emails in between our thoughts on it, because
true.
usually the feedback emails aren't as spoiler-filled as our discussion.
That's true.
You'll fix it in post.
With optical illusions.
With
optical illusions?
Optical effects, not optical illusions.
And how do you do optical illusions or effects in a podcast, an audio podcast?
You're as bad as I am.
Anyway, I'm sorry to mean to interrupt, Sean.
What are we doing next?
Well, the reason I said that is because you talked about the Kid Time, and we're also going to review the Girl.
Oh, well, yeah, we'll do both. But for Friday Night Who, we'll be doing the Stones of Blood, continuing the third segment of the Key to Time. It's one of the ones I like. And then
The Girl Who Waited.
The Girl Who Waited is next week's.
Which I
knew Who.
Knowing the title of this episode,
it's obviously going to be Amy-centric.
Yes, and then seeing the coming up.
What, you mean like Amy's Choice was Amy-centric?
It wasn't what I expected them to be tackling. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. Two versions of Amy, I think that's kind of a clever...
Oh. Well, no, I just completely expected something else. Because Amy's been the girl who waited, I expect something else.
Oh, speaking of
it's going to surprise me, and I think I'm going to be pleased by it.
Speaking of the girl who waited, did anybody else, when they were going door to door and getting Strange Cat Lady and Disagreeable Landlord and then Little Girl, did anybody else kind of get a weird, wow, that kind of looks like Amelia Pond? Did they move after the house?
No,
so
but I'll tell you what
I
I did think, that the two girls were going to end up being the dolls in the thing, because they
so
were
did
creepy looking enough the way they were. But
Which, who knows, they could have been, we just didn't see it.
maybe.
And I totally got a Shining Children of the Corn feel from them.
Yeah.
Twins are creepy. Sorry, we got to throw that.
Young twin girls.
Young twin girls are creepy. And thank you for
Stanley Kubrick
for officially putting clowns on the list. With
Yes, that was fantastic.
He doesn't like clowns. Who does?
Yeah.
or whatever the line was. That was great. But yeah, so next week, Stone's Blood and The Girl Who Waited.
Well, I think that's going to do it for us this week then. Until next week, cheers.
Are we launch right into
Oh, I'm Glenn. Yeah, no, I screwed that up. Until next
we
week,
say our names again,
I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you.
You can't throw me off
No,
like
I was
that.
trying to mix it up. We were going to do our sign-offs and then our names. No, not really. I don't know.
You're going to give him his brain's going to explode.
There needs to be a memo. If you could write
Each
this
week,
down,
that'll be part of the pre-show notes.
this is where you fall down now. I'd be okay with that, because otherwise I won't know.
Good night.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.